very suspicious because it's an anonymous account. I don't know anything about them. I don't know who they are. I've never heard of them. I don't know when they popped up. She's also a platinum dead ender, which was also a red flag in and of itself. It's just very suspicious. When you have an anonymous new account, it's always suspicious. Who are you? Are you AI? Like, where did you come from? Why are you still a platinum dead ender? What is your organizational background? Have you done organizing? Are you a part of a movement? Are you a part of a group? Are you Sunrise Movement? Are you Gen Z for Change? These sorts of things actually, at least to a certain degree, show me like what your perspective looks like, why you're saying certain things. If I can't make sense of it, it just like weirds me out. Caitlin Hennessy is a much more cut and dry grifter, much more straightforward grifter, farmed as much eyeballs and attention as she possibly could by weaponizing the pro-Palestine movement and that momentum, only to then turn around and get the bag to flip entirely, right? But pro-Israelis become pro-Palestinian every day. Why can't you imagine the other way? Oh, great question. Momentum, organic momentum. Do you think Israel is getting more popular by the day or less popular by the day? Do you think it's more likely for people to go against a lifetime of propaganda and then recognize the truth of the matter? Or do you think it's the opposite? That's it. That's the reason why we say this. That's the reason why we say it's most likely money playing a role here. Yeah, the Don't Sippy account literally compared Graham Plattner's accuser to Emmett Till's accuser. It's fucking nutty. And I don't know where that came from. I don't know what kind of like movement that they were trying to tap into with that one. So yeah, there are a couple takes that I see from an account like that that just rub me super, super weirdly. Okay. Rub me the wrong way. I just, it just doesn't pass my smell test. That's all I'm saying.
Vote in Democratic primaries can turn out in large enough numbers to slap their hand away. Who did the slapping?
Well, I just think generally in Wisconsin, races come down to often 1 percentage point, even less than one. So, again, it's really hard to win. I mean, not only with zany policies like not liking Thanksgiving, but what does permanent affordability mean?
Yeah.
This was a central claim.
Theory?
Yes,
Black
please.
voters, rural white voters. Right? This is what happens in Democratic primaries. This is how you get a Joe Biden coming out on top in South Carolina. Like, I think that Michael Crowley did benefit from an energized black vote. We'll see if the numbers bear that out. But there's been a lot of talk about whether this left flank is understanding who's in the coalition and how to expand it. Does that, well, can I let you finish? I didn't mean to interrupt, but that's my theory, that there's some people who are out there who are like, chill, we're not doing that.
Absolutely, and when you have states with large rural populations too, polling has floundered in so many places across the country, so I think that's another issue.
Well, look, I think that there's going to be some finger wagging from the centrists here, thinking that their theory of the case was right all along. I would not put a lot of credence to that. I think that the candidates that show that they're really willing, ready, and able to take on power are doing very well, and the ones that voters perceive as not ready, willing, and able to take on power are not doing so well.
Well, here's what's different. I think, who did you mention who won over Angie?
Peggy Flanagan.
Peggy Flanagan. One of the things she was dealing with is the person she was competing against was actually took some hit on immigration in a state that's very much dealing with the issue. So it wasn't just saying like, oh, you're a moderate, we don't care.
Yeah, this is also precisely the reason why the comparison that even Ed and Germentum tried to make between Peggy Flanagan and Francesca Hong was a very silly one. I've been to both of these states. I know what the movements look like in both of these states. I've been on the ground, and I can tell you, very different environment, very different level of anger, very different experiences for the broader electorate. Okay? What did Angie Craig in was the Lake and Riley Act. Okay? Lake and Riley is a ticking time bomb for a lot of these candidates that tried to hide the fact that they were pro-ICE and now they're anti-ICE, especially in a place like Minnesota. Minnesota, due to Operation Metro Surge, straight up was occupied by the Trump administration. Okay? This is an anti-ICE and anti-Israel electorate broadly. So if you're AIPAC backed, people are not going to trust you. It's not going to go away. If you're pro-ICE at any point, especially after Trump won, especially after Trump won, when you like leaned into that shit, it's going to be tough for you. The only difference, the only exception I would make is John Ossoff, I think. Because John Ossoff is well, one, not opposed by anyone from his left flank. That's number one, like anyone with viability, as far as I know. And two, is a charismatic enough orator to be able to overcome those issues. But if there is a viable and robust left flank response, even in a state like Georgia, yes, Ossoff would be cooked. Bro, you still pushing this narrative? What? What narrative? What is the narrative? Explain what you mean. Yeah, 1-to-1 Flanagan, Operation Metro Surge tweet. My voting precinct is located in the number 3 zip code for ICE abductions during Operation Metro Surge, and it went 85% for Peggy Flanagan. There you go. That's the point. Also, Peggy Flanagan did go beast mode against ICE. She said, we need to rip ICE apart and stop them from terrorizing our neighbors.
We need to rip ICE apart and stop them from terrorizing our neighbors. And I know that we can fix our broken immigration system, secure the border, and create a real pathway to citizenship that aligns with our values.
That was a great take from her, by the way. Why am I only learning about her now? I didn't really cover the Peggy Flanagan race all that much. That's probably why. You should get, you should have a more diverse media diet. Peggy is Minnesota from Wellstone. Craig is nothing. Peggy has been in since her teenage years. Yeah, no, she's great. Is she the most progressive? No, but it doesn't matter. She's great. She's a Bernie-crat. I will tell you what my attitude was to the Peggy Flanagan race. I've been in this state. I know that I have a lot of Hasanabi heads in the state. There are a lot of people in this state that were excited about Peggy. But here's an example of a candidate that I did not feel comfortable like openly associating with, not even from my calculation, but from the calculation of how they would be able to maneuver the negative media attention. I did worry that if I were to go and do a rally with Peggy, which by the way they didn't even ask for the record, full disclosure, right? But if I were to go out and stump for Peggy Flanagan, there would be a lot of negative attack ads against her. And I don't think that she would be able to overcome that negative association because she's not ride or die. You know what I mean? Like, she's more progressive. She's a Bernie-crat, but, she's far from a part of this movement overall, right? And also, she didn't even need it regardless at the end of the day. But she would not, she's a progressive. She's not a socialist. She's not even like Abdul as far as foreign policy goes. So I certainly was worried that an association of that sort would backfire because she would not be able to handle the comms. She would not be able to turn the narrative around to like make her to make this moment of the spotlight work in her favor, right? So she is definitely, even on the issue of Israel, far better than most Senate candidates and far better than most senators that are in office, right? And she is an ally, but I would not go so far as to say that she's like, an unbelievably progressive force. I mean, she's definitely far more progressive than the average Democratic senator, but still not like a person that I would feel confident would be able to actively take advantage of the extra media attention and flip it in her favor. So it would have been a negative. I think it would have been my association with her would have been negative. Like, I'm pretty open about this, right? I'm pretty open about like what could backfire, an association that could technically backfire. Stick a fork in it. Peggy Flanagan defeats Angie Craig in the Democratic primary. Pro-Flanagan outside groups were outspent 4.3 times by pro-Craig outside groups. Flanagan was endorsed by Sanders, Warren, Van Hollen, and other progressives. So she's somewhere in between a Warrenite and a Sandernista, right? You're acting like she's Kamala Harris, bro. She's well to the left of the average Democrat Congress. No, I'm not. I'm not saying she's a Kamala Harris style candidate. I'm not saying that at all. You were at the Peggy rally. What is this? It's just you and me, baby. Look deeply into my eyes. Watching all my ladies sweep the primaries on my preferred news network live at the Peggy Flanagan. That's funny. Yeah, I'm excited about her. I work in local Minnesota media. Some of these people would beat the America Deserve 9/11 dead horse for months. Yeah, that's not even what I'm talking about. That's ineffective. We've seen that is ineffective. It's more so effective if the campaign is not fully on board with being able to flip that negative attention into a positive one. Do you understand? Like the attack ads are they're not consequential unless you don't know how to handle them, okay? Do you understand? You can argue candidate tweets are more effective than your 9/11 moment. Yes, 100%. Like, the 9/11 thing is an ineffective line of attack. It's probably more consequential for the candidates if they have. Are you saying you think she would have dropped the ball and disavow you if there was too much pressure? Yes. That's and that is that would give so much momentum to the actual effectiveness of those attack ads because it would make her look weak. Yeah, seemingly the winning political strategy in Democratic primaries is just to go in front of the media and be like, yeah, it's completely fucking over. We're all going to die for the entire week before the election. Yeah, Senator Bernie Sanders tells CBS Face the Nation he's not confident Peggy Flanagan will win the Democratic primary for the U.S. Senate in Minnesota. No, I'm not confident. I think it's going to be a very close race. She's being outspent 7-1. Yeah, for all the fucking Bernie is the election whisperer guys, remember this line? Yeah, he said that. He said that literally 2 days out from the election, and I guess it lit a fire under everyone's ass. That's what Tony Evers did too. That was literally the Tony Evers strategy. Funny enough, Flanagan was the only major Democrat in Minnesota to support the January 23 shutdown against ICE in the lead up to the shutdown rather than after it started, and supporting it was vaguely safe. Yeah. Only 4 articles of you today. East Coast Journal outlets are 1 hour away from end of day. Yeah, they got their one Crowley victory. That's it. So there's no more reason to cover Hasanabi Piker. The goal here is to do a disciplining operation.
About you. It was somebody who the voter had said, oh, you voted for the Lincoln-Riley Act. As Democrats, we are not into that, and they were punished for it, right? Is that different than the progressive winning?
Hassan, why are you the dumbest person on Twitch and think you can have it all your way? What you do is the right and what others do is wrong. I don't think that way.
More than the moderate being punished.
Yeah, I think so. And also, I feel like too often, those of us in D.C. and those of us in politics think about these buckets or labels as centrist or lefty or Democrat or Republican. And I think people are much more in touch with how the political issues are touching their lives locally, and they go with a candidate who's more responsive to that.
For people that are trying to say that the DSA is the future of the Democratic Party, yeah, I don't think you're close. I think you need to go back to the last contested Democratic presidential contest, and you see that everybody mocked and ridiculed Joe Biden through Iowa, through New Hampshire, and then he got to South Carolina and he rolled up huge numbers.
We saw what happened.
And he won. Right.
Let's break it down.
God, this stale ass narrative. Really? Are we still doing this shit? That's crazy.
So Milwaukee County Executive David Crowley has secured the Democratic nomination for governor of Wisconsin over Democratic Socialist Francesca Hong. Crowley was ahead of Hong by roughly 3,200 votes when the race was called. And because Hong now has conceded, there will be no recount. Crowley's campaign manager wrote to supporters on social media, thanking the other candidates. It reads in part this: from day one, this campaign has been about what comes next for Wisconsin, making life more affordable, strengthening our schools, creating good-paying jobs, and making sure opportunity reaches every corner of our state. The tight margin was a surprise given Hong's wide lead in polling that prompted other candidates to drop out of the race early on, including Crowley, who recently re-entered the primary with the backing of outgoing Governor Tony Evers. Crowley will now face Trump-backed Republican Congressman Tom Tiffany, who is a member of the House Freedom Caucus and voted against.
Yeah, I mean, he's a huge scumbag. Like, it's not even a question between Crowley and Tom Tiffany. It's not even close, you know? Not only is it important for the trifecta, but it's just like, these guys need to get punished, okay? Guys like this especially need to get fucking punished. Like, there's no shot. Not even close. Sorry. Like, you know, that is, like, it doesn't matter that fucking Crowley was like, oh, I like AI data centers. We got to listen to the Republicans. It's like, it's crazy.
Certifying the 2020 election.
And for the record, I will say this over and over again. He's going to lose. Tom Tiffany is going to lose. Okay. So just like I was confident that Francesca Hong would defeat Tom Tiffany, I'm still confident that Crowley will defeat Tom Tiffany as well.
All right.
Here we go. Along with Joe, Willie, and me, we have the co-host of our 8 a.m. hour, staff writer at The Atlantic, Jonathan Lemire, co-host of the Rest is Politics podcast, the BBC's Katty Kay, former U.S. Senator, MS Now political analyst Claire McCaskill is with us, and conservative commentator and author.
What made you and Mike push to endorse Hong over Crowley? Wait, what? What a crazy question. What? Francesca Hong is a socialist. Francesca Hong had incredible policies. David Crowley is just like a cookie cutter establishment Democrat. What a question. Of course, I'm always going to push, especially in the primaries, for someone who is a part of this movement as opposed to someone who is directly in opposition to it. What?
Author of the book, How the Right Lost Its Mind, Charlie Sykes is with us as well.
And Willie, just looking at this panel, when you talk about Wisconsin, it's obvious we want to go to Caddy K.
Yes.
Caddy K, tell us, as you get up to Oshkosh,
I mean,
we'll go to Willie. Willie
Why not?
for the first question. Why not?
Well, we did have a little bit of a Mount Rushmore up there, with all due respect to Caddy. I'm going to go to Charlie Sykes to kick things off here, Joe.
Yeah.
Let's just say how wild, Charlie, first this race was. Yeah. The man who is now the nominee, David Crowley, was not in this race. He dropped out in early July, kind of giving the field to the frontrunner, Democratic frontrunner, Sarah Rodriguez. She drops out of the race. He gets back in the race. He was supposed to actually be on vacation this week during the election, but was compelled to get back into the race. The polling, which now I think we can kind of throw to the side, over the last several weeks and months had Hong up 20 points in some of the polls, and she loses by a very narrow margin last night, but still loses by about 3,000 votes. So, Charlie Sykes, what happened in Wisconsin last night?
Well, it turns out that we're not the crazy ones after all. Look, I'm looking at some of the local coverage here. You know, the words like, shocking, surreal, stunning, unheard of, comeback, Hail Mary play. And none of them are an exaggeration given what's happened here. But I think it's an indication that Democratic primary voters may be angry, but they're also focused on electability. And it's one thing to be angry, and want dramatic change. It's another thing to nominate somebody who might have turned the state over easily to a mega election denier. Again, this is one of those remarkable moments where, all of the spin and all of the hype about, the Democratic Socialists of America, I think that what you saw happen was, and I'm glad you played that clip about canceling Thanksgiving, that, some of these candidates, when the Klee lights go on, they're not necessarily ready for prime time. Now, economic populism may work, but when you're out there with the kind of woo-woo woke, faculty lounge, stuff like that, I think it read as kind of strange, out of the norm. And so David Crowley, who is a substantial individual, was able to capture that. And so, in the end, Wisconsin voters voted for the normie candidate. And by the way, now sets up the possibility of Wisconsin getting its first African-American governor.
Yeah, and yeah, woo-woo woke. I think, Claire, AOC has now coined the term woke one. Yeah. I don't know if we're in woke 2 or woke 3 or whatever we're in. But whatever we're in, this is a pretty remarkable, stunning, as Charlie said, if you look at the Wisconsin papers, it's an absolutely stunning outcome. And it's a stunning outcome in part because it really was an anybody but election where you have a candidate dropping out. Then he's pulled back in. He's supposed to be on vacation. He didn't even speak last night. A statement was released, but not even by him. It was by his campaign manager.
All of this literally feels like a flex. I don't know why. I just read it as a flex. It's like, look at what we are capable of doing. We can sleepwalk into a victory with no policies, with no discernible agenda, with no message for a better future, because that is what happened, right? It's interesting. It's actually interesting that is unironically what they're kind of saying here. I just wouldn't be so comfortable. I don't think it's good to be comfortable, especially in a moment like this. I'm of course far more confident in Abdul's chances of uniting the base and motivating people to turn out in the large enough numbers necessary to overcome great amounts of outside spending. But And I am still confident that Crowley will defeat Tom Tiffany, who is, an awful candidate. But having said that, I think it's important for Democrats to, at the very least, attempt to consolidate the base here and lean into some of these objectively popular policies that clearly motivated a lot of people. Because if one side is simply leaning into electability as an argument and the other side is leaning into policies, that means the other side's base of support is turning out for something rather than against the Republicans. So you should not feel comfortable leaning into the electability argument in the general. You should not feel comfortable leaning into the harm reduction argument in the general. This is a big mistake that I think establishment Democrats don't understand. That's why our side, our movement, our goals or our opportunity to unite the base is far, far easier than their opportunity to unite the base is. If one side is demanding things and the other side is simply voting against the Republicans, then the side that's going to vote against the Republicans is going to vote against the Republicans no matter what. That's why it's easier for, I think, progressive candidates, left flank candidates, insurgent candidates to get the support necessary from the establishment, especially the money, right? And be able to still get turnout from other parts of the base that normally would not turn out at all, and basically win these races against Republicans, especially populist Republicans, sloppulous Republicans. But it will be more difficult for Crowley, I think, to make sure that he secures the turnout necessary. Even then, though, I do think that they'll still win.
This shows you, again, just how they quickly pushed him back out there because they did not want this DSA candidate to win.
Yeah, it's interesting. Before I went to bed last night, I looked at the county-by-county results, and I had a sense that Crowley was going to win for one important reason: rural Wisconsin. If you look at the margins in rural Wisconsin, that's really what put him over. And I think it's something Democrats forget a lot. We talk a lot about big...
Yeah, the only rural Wisconsin counties that Francesca Hong overperformed in were outside of the Wisconsin TV markets. So, yeah, rural Wisconsin voted for the establishment candidate because they saw the ads. They saw the TV ads. They watched a lot of television. It worked.
Blue places, cities, even suburbs, sometimes ex-urban areas. And I think we don't talk about rural America enough. The margins in rural America are incredibly important for electability. And Crowley showed last night that he could pull it out in rural Wisconsin, which bodes well for November. Now, having said that, I think it's also very important that everybody be focused on uniting. It is hard when you have a race like this and a result for everybody to get back together again. But Wisconsin now has an opportunity to elect the first black governor ever elected in the Midwest. So I think it's exciting, and hopefully all the people that were for Hong will get on board and realize what's at stake is way more important than maybe some differences around the edges. On the main policy issues, these two factions of the Democratic Party agree.
And we have seen those public messages of unity last night in Wisconsin and Michigan last week and in Minnesota as well. We'll dig into Minnesota a little bit, John, but it is a state-by-state, race-by-race thing. In Minnesota, the progressive candidate won to become the next senator of the state of Minnesota.
All right,
Here, though,
Turning Point USA spokesperson Andrew Colvett joins me now. Andrew, Francesca Hong narrowly lost in Wisconsin. Penny Flanagan won really big in Minnesota. I don't think socialism's momentum has stalled. How about you?
No, I don't think so at all, Stu. And by the way, I just have to say, Charlie always loved coming on your show, Stu, and so it's an honor to be here with you. But yeah, I completely agree. The Democrat Party unleashed this monster, and they can't put it back in the box so easily at all. What you saw in Wisconsin last night was sort of the establishment strikes back. Right, we saw that with El Said. They did everything they could to undermine that campaign. We call it electioneering in the strongholds of Milwaukee and Detroit in that instance with El Sayed. But yeah, they unleashed this. They embraced third worldism. They embraced racial grievances. They embraced Hassan Piker. They fought against Bernie Sanders twice, and now they get Bernie Sanders on steroids all over the country. So the establishment Democrats made this problem a reality, and I don't think they can stop it anytime soon, Stu.
Far left streamer Hassan Piker. He's become a big part of the progressive movement. I want you to just listen to some of his past very controversial comments. Watch this, please.
If you cared about Medicare fraud or Medicaid fraud, you would Rick Scott. Okay,
I'm pro stealing from big corporations because, you know, they steal quite a bit more from their own workers.
Empires never die quietly, and we must end the American empire regardless. The fall of the USSR was one of the greatest catastrophes of the 20th century.
America deserved 9/11, dude. I'm saying it.
I mean, banger after banger. What can you say?
This comes as Rolling Stone says Hassan Piker just wants people to listen to what he has to say. And look, if people embrace Piker, would this be the ultimate undoing for the Democrat Party?
I hope so.
I hope so. I don't think so, but I hope so.
I have no faith in that because their Achilles heel has always been they don't know when to stop. They don't know how far they've gone. But the country keeps changing, Stu. So we import a lot of people that bring in foreign ideologies. There's a larger and larger pool.
It's beautiful that immediately the reasonable Republican concern immediately turns to great replacement theory. Like, remember, this guy's supposed to be the moderate Republican, right? Turning Point USA, spiritual successor, not as ridiculous as like a Nick Fuentes type, right? And what is the difference? I mean, him and Nick Fuentes completely align on the Great Replacement. It's just he doesn't think Jews are responsible for the Great Replacement. Nick Fuentes thinks Jews are responsible for the Great Replacement. That's it. But they still agree that the Great Replacement is taking place, that the Democratic Party, like he would probably say George Soros is doing the third world migration into the United States. Nick Fuentes says it's all Jews. So even on that front, there's not like a big fundamental difference there, right? It's so strange that we act as though the Republicans are not the radical ones. It's actually like if you're a liberal and you lean in any way, shape, or form to the idea that like someone like myself represents a radical wing, a radical perspective. Meanwhile, these are the guys. These are the normal guys on Fox News. And this is the normal commentary coming from the normal Republican Party. I mean, you're out of your fucking mind, right? You're out of your dang mind. What are we talking about? It's completely ridiculous.
People that seem to lack good common sense and seem to respect the American way of life and the things that have made this country great. So I hope so. I hope that would be right, because even all of those clips, you've left out so many about how he's excited about impoverishing the white middle class, how he jokes about a better era when we go back to lynchings when it comes to black people.
Wait, what? They've lost their dang minds, I think. That one is what I don't even know what that is a reference to. Is that the one that like they put up as a hold on. That was Scott Jennings lied about it? What the fuck?
On top of these candidates,
what are they?
Ed, choose to keep for company. Just listen to this. Hassan Piker in Cut 8.
I don't give a what black people care about. Oh, black people care about this. Black people care about that. Like, shut the
up. That's not how politics works. Oh, well, Hasan, how dare you? Like it or not, black people care about this issue. The issue is literally a guy LARPing as a black person saying black people care about ICE. Okay? Random anonymous guy claiming, oh, black people care about the border, black people care about ICE. You don't know what black people care about. Which is bullshit. That's not true. A chatter that wasn't even black, by the way, just a person that was either LARPing as a black person or just claiming to speak for all black people. It's like, it's such a fucking stupid stance. Any other black folk want to engage in radical activist language in this fucking chat? This one is me responding to someone saying all black people are voting for Eric Adams. Suck my yes, dude. It's because I'm racist. That's why. It's because I'm racist, dude. Go back to a better time when lynchings were happening. This is what I like as a black man. Are you always doing too much with black people? Leave them alone. I want to go back to lynching. Like, I get it, but relax. Man, shut the up, okay? Yeah, I'm reading someone's comment in that one. You got me, okay? You got me, because I'm a racist person.
You just heard campaigns all the time.
If anyone gets duped by this edit, I'm sorry. You are the biggest fucking moron of all time. Like, me reading a goddamn comment that I very clearly disagree with being turned into a genuine position that I have. Let's be real. If I actually believed those things that they're claiming I believe, you would straight up defend me, Scott Jennings. What are you talking about? When I say, yeah, I'm a racist, you got me, I'm being sarcastic. The fuck? 5 jump cuts in 10 seconds. What are we doing? Normie lives like my dad would get tricked. I mean, Normie lives like your dad probably also believe in AI videos too. This is the most insincere. This is the most insincere version of events. Clip chimping is too OP, please nerf. That's crazy. Seven 3-second clips sequenced together by the Republican Party. Nobody believes this shit, bro. Don't get too worked up about it. I know. I don't think the only people that are believing, quote unquote, believing this stuff are people who are motivated to make this an issue. It's like this is the equivalent of me going, I love black people. I hate when people hate black people. And then they clip the parts to make it seem like I'm saying I hate black people. Like to clip the different parts of the commentary to be like, see, he did it. It's incredible. The problem with this though is that this kind of narrative would have no partisan. This kind of narrative would immediately fall by the wayside for partisans. Like Democrats would look at this and go, what the fuck are you talking about? This dude is literally an advocate for Black Lives Matter from the start. You're out of your dang mind. Saying these are his positions is totally ridiculous. If these were actually his positions, you'd be in support of him. But the issue is CNN, MS Now, a lot of legacy publishers will not do that. A lot of legacy publishers are not going to go out and say, this is total partisan hackery. You've chopped up the things that he's saying in an effort to present him as like being anti-black, when it's very clear that's not the case. The problem is a lot of establishment media, a lot of mainstream media, a lot of conservative adjacent media also see me as a problem. They see me as a problem for other reasons. They don't see me as a problem because I speak out against police brutality. They see me as a problem because I'm a prominent critic of Israel. Okay? Let's be real. Scott Jennings is, by the way, directly paid by the pro-Israel Hasbara network. We know this to be the case. Former Trump administration campaign manager, former Trump staffer, I forget what Brad Parscale is his name. Brad Parscale got paid millions of dollars from the Israeli government, had to register as a foreign agent to specifically engage in this influence peddling operation. This is probably one aspect of said operation. Okay? He's going to bring this shit up on an Abby Phillip panel if you don't at least threaten to sue him over it. I don't know what opportunities we have for litigation, but it is one of the grossest clip chimps I've ever seen. But Scott Jennings is a part of Salem Media. Salem Media is the white nationalist, Christian nationalist network, right? And Salem Media got a lot of money from Brad Parscale, specifically to do pro-Israel commentary, to attack Israel's critics. So just remember that. When you think about this kind of thing, remember that there is a network of money and moneyed interest coming directly from the Israeli government to conduct this kind of narrative peddling. Happy to help form a litigation team for you to go after these clowns. I mean, I'll look at what options are available to me. Because yeah, this is completely out of control. I mean, it's such an unbelievable attempt to slander, to smear. I don't know if there is I don't know if this is correct or not. I mean, I don't know if there's an opportunity here. Not this is correct or not. I don't know if there's a opportunity here to pursue litigation. Probably. It's one of the it is one of the instances where it is very clear that they are chopping things down. I don't know what the legal avenues I have for defamation. Like, I don't know if there are other previous cases where someone has just been like clipped like this so blatantly to present the exact opposite of their position. They're testing how insane they can get before you hit them with a lawsuit. I'm warning you, they're testing what they can get away with. Stop saying that you won't do it. No, I'm not. I'm not saying I won't do it. I think this is consequential. This is clear-cut defamation. He's showing your clip. He's just showing your clips. How will you prove intent? Great question. Great question. I already gave you the example, right? If I were to say, I love black people and I hate when people hate black people, and they cut it down to make it seem like I was saying I hate black people, that's obviously defamation. It's not my position at all. They're trying to say that I'm racist. They're trying to say that I'm pro-lynching. That's insane. That's an insane assertion to make. The edit itself and the additional commentary surrounding the edit itself is totally ridiculous. They're now saying I'm pro-lynching on Fox News. It would be the equivalent of cutting me saying I'm pro-lynching on Fox News and just keep the I'm pro-lynching part to say he's pro-lynching. It doesn't work that way. That's not how language works. That's not how messaging works. Statement is actual malice standard of Times v. Sullivan. They made this statement either knowing it was false or with reckless disregard to the truth. Yeah. As a public figure, you'll have to prove actual malice, tough standard. I don't know if that's such a tough standard, because I think my advocacy in this space for the last 13 years actually proves, especially if there's enough especially if there's enough evidence of these guys in the past criticizing my commentary being too pro-black, right? And that probably isn't that hard to find because I've been around the block for a very long time. God, you suck at being clear with your positions, dude. You have to be better. It's not about suing because of how it affects you. It's bad because you know the edit deeply offends black people, which they are doing on purpose to traumatize their viewers, using you as a vehicle. Wait, what? Yeah, what? In any case, they've absolutely crossed the... Oh my God. Everyone loves me to say, like, I'm going to sue. And then the moment that I say, I will explore my legal options, they go, dude, shut the fuck up right now and start talking about, start talking to a lawyer.
Too much with black people, leave them alone. I want to go back to lynching. Like, I get it, but fucking relax. Man, shut the fuck up, okay? God damn. Yes. Yeah, I'm literally reading a comment. And they clipped it in a way to make it seem like that's my own personal assessment, my own personal opinion. Okay? There it is. That's the OG. Actual malice is a term of art. It means you would need to prove that they knew it was false or had reckless disregard for the statement's veracity. You might be able to pursue false light if that's available. Talk to a lawyer for sure. Threatening to sue is no big deal. Like, look at all of the surrounding evidence that's readily available that's lost in the context here in the way that they cut this. I'm sorry. This is clear-cut, reckless disregard for the truth, especially considering that I'm reading someone else's comment and saying I disagree with it. There is 0% chance that the person who clipped it, the Republican NRSC account that clipped this and put it in a compilation, thought that this was a sincerely held belief of mine. Because if they did, they wouldn't have actually taken the time and effort to just zoom into my face. They wouldn't have taken the time and effort to clip just me reading the comment. This is ridiculous. It is basically the equivalent of them. It's basically the equivalent of them straight up clipping mid-sentence to make it seem like I'm saying the opposite thing that I'm saying with the hopes of frustrating people, specifically black people and people who care about criminal justice and people who care about white supremacy and its negative impact on the United States of America into believing that I am in favor of a heinous hate crime. It's ridiculous. Doesn't the Fox News commentator explicitly say that's your position? Yes, that is exactly what they're saying. And that's what Andrew Colvett is saying here as well. So we're now beginning to learn. Here's the thing.
we're now beginning to learn the tactic that will be deployed by the Republican Party in the midterms, right? They're not just going to say, oh, Hassan is a radical. This channels his viewpoint, but is like egregious, right? He hates America because he said this or that. Like, there's a different standard, right? There's something you can say by using my 9/11 comments, even if it's untrue, is to say that, like, oh, I hate America. I think that that's like a more difficult case to prosecute, a more difficult defamation case to prosecute. But it's clear that they're not just doing that. They're going to turn around and not just say that, like, oh, Hassan is Hassan is in favor of bad things for America. They're just going to straight up say things that are the opposite of what I believe. And they're testing the waters right now. There's a precedence, a particularly relevant case of Virginia Citizens Defense League versus Keurig in the U.S. Fourth Circuit. They won $12 million.
I said that this DSA movement is motivated by a hatred of white America. Well, actually, it turns out they hate anything that gets in their way. Any group that doesn't get on and refuses the revolution, that's who's up against the DSA. And so Hassan Piker is a malignant, parasitical force in American politics, and I hope he's rejected as he should be.
So I just don't understand why more Democrats are not calling him out.
Perhaps it's because you guys have made up a fucking phenomena, and most people are of sound mind, and they recognize that you're insincerely launching this conquest.
Because they want the attention. They want to be, they believe that Hassan Piker has captured some base energy, some grassroots energy. They don't want to be outflanked on their left, so they embrace him, they put their arm around him, and they try and explain away all the crazy things he said. That is a very disastrous policy and approach for our country. It really could lead to disaster for them, but I think they're willing to take that risk right now if it means they can win a primary, and that's a real cowardly place to be.
This Friday, the Democratic Socialists of America throw a Y2K-themed prom in Los Angeles. They're charging people for tickets, the money going towards the group's political campaigns. Can you tell me why they would have a Y2K theme?
I think they think it's retro and cool. I think it's cringe. All
Wait,
right.
what the fuck does this have to do with anything? How is this? What the fuck are they doing, man? What does that mean? Like, are you scared of Y2K happening? It's so confusing.
It's going to be a masked celebration, if you would even call it that, of a bunch of people that are hypochondriacs with purple and green hair and asking for points of personal privilege. I cannot imagine a worse place to be. But that does sort of capture the ethos of the younger wing of the DSA party. And so, unfortunately, I'm sure it'll be well attended.
I like your use of the word hypochondriacs. I shall use it myself. I'm going to steal it from you, okay? Andrew, it was a real pleasure. Thanks for being on the show.
Good.
Thank you very much.
Democrats look to regain control of Congress. Twitch streamer Hassan Piker has emerged as a lightning rod within the party.
The fuck? Who's Hassan Piker, prominent streamer dividing the Democratic Party? KATV? What the fuck?
Progressives embracing his young male audience, while moderate Democrats have pushed back.
This aired on local Sinclair media in the country? What the fuck? Now local Sinclair media is up my ass too? Holy moly. Oof. Rupert Murdoch is obviously put the crosshairs on me, and now we got Sinclair on top of it too. Jesus Christ.
Against his inflammatory rhetoric.
I do legitimately think these guys are trying to get me fucking killed. I will say it. I mean, it doesn't feel great to be in this situation, but it is it's obvious that the narrative is set in where the goal here is to just basically say, like, this is the most nefarious, most toxic force in American politics. Someone has to do something.
The National News Desk, Jeff Harris joining us. We know Piker has been campaigning with multiple Democrats this primary season, including Michigan Senate candidate Abdul El Sayed. Tell us more about this controversial streamer.
So a 35-year-old Twitch streamer born in New Jersey, Piker has quickly emerged as an influential figure within the Democratic Party. His digital following reaching millions and millions each and every month, but his comments, both past and present, have caused some division, specifically on U.S. foreign policy, terrorist organizations, and geopolitical conflicts.
I love Lenin, I love Fidel Castro, and I love Che Guevara. They are genuinely heroes.
From praising Marxist and anti-capitalist ideology to denying sexual...
Yeah, I mean, I stand on that. There's not, that's crazy.
...violence committed by Hamas.
Bro, what rapes did Hamas do? What are you talking about?
And praising foreign terrorist organization Hezbollah.
What my favorite flag? Yeah. Hezbollah. Look it up. Oh. I'm not even kidding. It's actually a dope flag.
Hasan Piker, who began Twitch streaming in 2018 and once said America deserved 9/11, has emerged as one of the most recognized and influential voices on the American political left, specifically among younger Americans. His Twitch account, 3 million followers, Instagram and YouTube, 1.9 million each, plus X, 1.7 million. With our research showing over 14 million every month watch his monthly live Twitch streams.
If October 7 was a genocide, I can't even do it. I'm sorry. That's so stupid.
A Democratic socialist.
I mean, October 7 was not a genocide. It's, again,
long-standing ties to the DSA. As his reach grew, Piker started to become more vocal politically around 2025, ramping up those efforts in 2026, endorsing Democratic Progressive Michigan Senate candidate Abdul El Sayed.
The party bosses are mad that they can't, control the will of the masses anymore. They can't, dupe people into voting for their hand-selected pick.
Plus, Wisconsin gubernatorial candidate Francesca Hung, a DSA member who supports abolishing ICE.
A 1-year data center moratorium.
Yes.
Breaking up big ag.
Yes.
Public grocery stores.
Yes.
When it comes to El Sayed, he is among those facing backlash for campaigning with Piker, actions he has recently defended.
Do you plan to continue to campaign with Hasan Piker in the general election campaign?
Look, I'm less concerned now with who I'm campaigning with, a lot more concerned about who I'm campaigning to.
Meanwhile, more moderate and establishment Democrats have torched some for their relationship with him, specifically not pushing back on his comments.
If somebody says a woman being raped doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things, it's okay to call that person out.
Now, Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is another Democrat who was asked recently about her appearances on Piker's live streams, telling ABC News this past weekend it's part of an effort to engage with young voters and build a, quote, winning coalition. Reporting for the National News Desk, I'm Jeff Harris.
Far-left candidates attacking the American way of life and the things that...
Maybe the goal is to make people stop watching the stream because of how much you have to cover this shit. Please do something about this shit. It's so annoying, Law. I think that's not the goal. I think that is an unfortunate byproduct of the broader media trend that's taking place. Jon Stewart Pod talked about you again for like 2 minutes. That's kind of the
core of our show.
Can I give you another example
Please.
of that, John, which is very much top of news cycle right now? So there's this whole controversy about Hasan Piker and whether or not candidates should associate with him. And Abdul El Sayed famously had a rally with him, so he's being targeted right now as how dare you associate with this guy who said all these terrible things. The clip that they usually point to is where he says we quote unquote deserve 9/11, where he's talking about the concept of blowback, and for which he has since apologized. Meanwhile, Abdul El Sayed is running against a guy who literally was in Congress after 9/11, who authorized the Iraq War, who supported mass surveillance, who defended torture, but where that guy is fine, but associating with someone who said something that was edgy one time, that's what's out of bounds. That's what should be off limits. That, not just me, but I think most people, is insane.
Well, I'll do you one better. J.D. Vance's spiritual advisor, the preacher that J.D. Vance considers one of his sort of spiritual advisors.
We got to go on motherfucking Jon Stewart's podcast, dude. Jon Stewart, save me. Only he can unite the libs in withstanding these attacks.
Talks about male dominion over women. You know, there are all kinds of extremes in terms of association. I remember with Obama.
Just think about, though, the contrast between Hasan Piker said a thing in response to 9/11 versus this guy actually was in power and was involved in the horrific lies leading up to that war, the authorization of the war, the torture, the murder of Iraqi civilians. And so when you talk about accountability, where is the accountability for that?
None.
Where is the moral weight on that? Versus,
None.
I mean, many of these guys that were villains on your show.
Choose. Would it be People Mover? Chariot? What? Anything?
The segue.
They should announce it on Breaking Points. Breaking Points. That's what they should call it. Yeah. That's
Majestic.
What I think. Yeah.
The final
entrance.
plug.
Yeah.
The final damn plug.
Where was the other timestamp that you wanted me to see with Jon Stewart? The other mentions, according to the transcript, 102:52.
How do you see the left policy? What's socialist about it? How do you see the left? What would be your, greatest criticism of them, and what would be your fix to that? How could you see them recovering from that?
So, I mean, look, I do not speak for the right. So I'm a very unique person. I don't really care about Hasan Piker. I did an event with him. He was fine. We were perfectly cordial. I actually think he's not nearly as radical as a lot of people think that he is. And so, I don't know if I'm the best person to answer, but like from my perspective, here's what I would say is that fundamentally what I think, you guys talked about, there's been a lot of like, cultural issues and all of that are nonsense. At the end of the day, there's only one movement in recent history that won households under $100,000. That was Donald Trump in the 2024 campaign, in which he won the popular vote. The DSA and leftists is predominantly a coalition of downwardly mobile white liberals. A lot of people who don't have a 4-year college degree find the movement distasteful or distrust them. We saw that just what happened in the Abdul El-Sayed campaign in the primary election, where you had older black voters of traditional political constituency and households that don't have 4-year college did not vote for him.
But still vote. I mean, that was a Democratic primary, but go ahead.
Right, but that's emblematic also in the general election results of 2024. So if we try to transpose those two things, the most likely predictor of what your politics are in this country is whether you have 4-year college degree or not. And if 4-year college degree is also correlated highly with income, the Democratic Party, while may having economic positions that supposedly benefit the working class, is not convinced the working class of that. That's just empirically true. Right. And so that's kind of like my criticism, if you will. If it's, Crystal gave her speech, so I'll give my worst case, my worst faith interpretation would be it's class cosplay. I mean, fundamentally, it is cosplay of dressing up, basically woke one type policy and or rhetoric.
To explain that, what is
woke one?
This
is a whole.
All right, why is this? Oh, I'm just scared for this. Ugh. Bad answer by Bernie. What was this?
How do you calculate? Where are you going to place endorsements and where not? I mean, we just had Francesca Hong lose by a hair in Wisconsin, and impossible to know, exactly whether an endorsement from you or AOC would make a difference. But how do you and I keep using the example of that game Risk, which I played as a kid, where you don't move to Kamchatka until you have enough on Irkutsk or something. How do you calibrate that?
That's a good question, and it's something that we in our political movement think about a whole lot. I think for a start, we don't want to overextend ourselves and promise more than we can provide. So we take, and second of all, I am a United States Senator. Am I familiar with the agricultural problems facing farmers in Wisconsin? I am not. Do I know something about what's going on nationally? I do. So for a start, most of our focus, with a few exceptions, has been on U.S. Senate races, Maine, Michigan, Minnesota, maybe elsewhere, and congressional races, a lot of congressional races. Also, we have supported dozens and dozens of what we call down ballot candidates, people running literally for school board, city council, mayor, state legislature. Why are we doing that? In that it's to create, in a sense, a farm team. These are the young people who 10, 20 years from now will be national leaders. And we want to help them get elected, get the experience that they need. And then furthermore, when we look at a campaign, for example, you got wonderful victories that took place in mayor's races in Seattle, Washington, D.C. We were not involved in those races. So we can't do everything. But what we do, we want to do well and give the kind of support to those candidates that they may need. That's kind of the answer. Yeah.
I mean, that makes sense to me.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's not helpful to lay the responsibility in the hands of Bernie and AOC. Do I wish that they endorsed Francesca Hong? Absolutely. But we should have been able to out-organize. I mean, the victory was so close. You know? It was so close.
Bring us together.
It's literally the difference. What the fuck? No, I understand that.
Critics are highlighting resurfaced comments like this from Michigan Democrat Senate candidate Abdul El-Sayed.
Football is very much associated with a particularly masculine and oftentimes toxically masculine
this is
culture.
The one. This is the insane
so
one,
much of it
right? This is the insane one where like C.J. Pearson basically tries to say that, I mean, his past radical comments are not radical at all. Like, it's just fucking ridiculous. They play the Laura Loomer tweet. They hit Talerico. I mean, this is important to understand, like, what their midterm strategy is. This is like, I guess this is basically just signaling what their midterm strategy is. Old tweets, they're woke, they're hiding how woke they are. At a time when people are so negatively polarized against anti-woke, I don't think that like highlighting how woke people used to be is going to be as salient a narrative as these guys think it is.
Bring us together.
With a whole team, and you really aren't allowed to show pain or vulnerability. That's part of the sport.
What about the Detroit Lions and the NFL? I think they bring a lot of revenue into that state. I bet they want a word. Some more gems from El-Sayed. Can we please find another way to celebrate July 4th? Fireworks, well, you see his word. And do we need to defund the police? And instead of the right to bear arms, we should change it to the right to have health care. His Republican opponent, Mike Rogers, with this response.
This guy spent hours hating on what most Michigan.
Yeah, Abdul had a really good response to this too. He says, since you're too afraid to debate me, how about you hold me accountable on a football field instead? Tackle no pass like we used to play when we were kids. I'd happy to show you how much I love football. Yeah, I hope this. Look, my controversial take on this is I like that he's the gloves are off, but I really hope that this doesn't play into the scary Muslim narrative. You know what I mean? I mean, he contains multitudes. It's good. That's the only thing I worry about a little bit, that they're just going to flip the script and be like, well, this is not like, this is not, this is not any kind of regular guy. He's not like LARPing as an anti-woke. He's not LARPing as a real American. He's just, he's a scary Muslim guy who's like threatening violence. Cause like these guys Republicans are nasty with this shit. Like they will flip back to victimhood so quick. I mean, they're doing it with me right now. On the one hand, they keep saying over and over again that I'm too woke, and then very quickly they flip it around and go, actually, he's anti-black. He wants to do racist lynchings to black people. So there's no end to their depravity with this kind of thing. They'll literally try to tune you up. They'll say you're a pussy, and then you turn around and you're like, I'm not a pussy. I'll fucking show you on the football field. They go, oh my God, you're threatening violence. You're a scary Muslim man.
Sanders would enjoy in their pastimes, and he should be held to account for that. These are views that he held that he was pretty strong about, but he knew that he had to delete them all for if people really knew who he was, they wouldn't vote for him.
Far-left New York congressional candidate Daria Liza Avila Chevalier posted in 2019, quote, I forgot to get napkins, so I just wiped my hand on the American flag behind me. Texas Democrat Senate candidate James Tellerico, you know, the one who believes God is binary, has also had trouble with the American flag.
I often think when reclaiming symbols, I think about the American flag. I think the Confederate flag is a symbol of treason and terrorism, but the American flag is such a complicated symbol for most of us.
And former Wisconsin Democrat governor candidate Francesca Hong was dogged by her past comments on the trail.
Thanksgiving is also a time that's incredibly painful for many people in our community.
It's crazy that they also, when they do actually when they do actually get a scalp, they will do the victory parade on it too. Because like the Francesca Hong thing is like, you know, Democrats leaned into it because obviously she's the left flank insurgent, and then the Republicans will further lean into that victory to say like, we did that, right? These guys are too woke. People are opposing. People find this kind of too woke for primetime attitude repulsive, and we're gonna win, and they're just basically waving that victory around at this point.
Communities.
By the way, she hates Valentine's Day. She hates a lot of things, not just Thanksgiving. Anything we celebrate, basically. Hong walked back those comments 2 days later, saying that Thanksgiving is her favorite holiday. These candidates have said their views have evolved, but it still gives Republicans new talking points in their arguments that the far-left values do not align with mainstream Americans. In Focus now, C.J. Pearson, podcast host and Next 250 PAC chairman. Great to see you today. Why do they want to put pressure on what makes us American?
How old is this guy? He's like a baby. Why do the Republicans have like a baby incubator? Here's a 12-year-old to give us insightful analysis on where the far left radicals are is so funny.
Because these people hate America. Let's make no qualms about it. And I got to think about the fact that even though they're trying to walk back these comments, Maya Angelou once said, when someone shows you who they are, believe them the first time. She didn't say the second time. She didn't say the third time.
Oh my God, it's so nasty to use Maya Angelou to do reactionary propaganda. Oh my God. Oh my God.
Said the first time, and certainly not when they're trying to gaslight an entire electorate. So when I hear Abdul al-Sayed say that he wants to abolish the Second Amendment, I take him at his word. When I hear Francesca Hong, dunking on time-favored American traditions, I take her at her word. And when I hear socialists trying to hide behind the acronym DSA because they don't want to stand behind what they're actually...
Wait, what does the S stand for? What do you mean? The acronym DSA, it just means Democratic Socialists of America. What the fuck? Again, classic instance of just lying, making it seem as though there's some sinister purpose. Making it seem as though the Democratic Socialist movement is actually terrified of the word socialism. That's why they hide behind the acronym DSA. That's not the case. Oh my God. Every aspect of this is just so tuned up, so frustrating
running
to
on,
see.
which is objectively just plain downright socialism. I take them at their word, and the American people ought to do the same.
I love what she taught you. Yeah, don't give them too many tries. Just believe who they show you they are the first time. Look, we're seeing now past video of Francesca Hong. She just lost in Wisconsin. We get that. She's hanging out with Hasan Piker, very toxic, dangerous streamer with his words, at least. Also, El Sayed was with him the night before his victory a couple of weeks ago. Piker is now objecting to what he deems as a threat against him. That's despite repeatedly making horrific threats against all sorts of Americans in this country. Conservative activist Laura Loomer posted this weekend, quote, one of these days, Hasan Piker is going to talk bleep to the wrong person, and then I'm going to make that person...
Dude, they're getting unbelievably shameless. I mean, this is no longer just like a slander smear operation. They're just actively highlighting people putting a hit out on me. Okay? That is crazy. And what's even crazier is the fact that Neera Tanden is literally quote retweeting this person. Neera Tanden, prominent president of Center for American Progress, sitting on the board for Center for American Progress, the premier quote unquote left-wing think tank. That Neera Tanden reposted Laura Loomer's deranged rants, claiming that I was doing ninja takia, as in hiding my true radical Islamist jihadist perspective. Is just unfiltered Islamophobia. And Neera Tanden, supposedly a progressive figure in Democratic Party politics, reposted that, retweeted that.
A give, send, go. Piker responded with prominent MAGA crazy, actively contracting a hit out on me. Let's listen to Piker.
If you cared about Medicare fraud or Medicaid fraud, you would Rick Scott.
Yeah, kill them. Kill those motherfuckers. Murder those motherfuckers in the street. Let the streets soak in their red capitalist blood.
Didn't he go to war and like literally lose his eye because some mujahideen, a brave soldier, his eye hole with their? Isn't that how he lost his dumb eye? America deserved 9/11, dude. I'm saying it.
And this is the man many Democrats continue to be seen with. Francesca Hong, Abdul El-Sayed, Bernie Sanders, AOC, Ilhan Omar, and more. You know, CJ, there was a call from one of my Democrat guests.
I mean, the question is pretty simple. Like, if I were to say what Laura Loomer said about me, about Rick Scott, I would get a call from Secret Service, right? I would get a call from the FBI. My comments about Rick Scott were very clearly not a call for an assassination because I was responding to what Mike Johnson was saying. It was more so about the hypocrisy of the Republican Party. It was about the hypocrisy of the Republican Party, not necessarily caring about Medicare fraud at all, because Rick Scott is the award-winning Medicare fraudster, right? So it's very clear what she's saying, and it's also very clear that Republicans have basically unlimited bandwidth to say whatever they want about their political opposition. So this is moving beyond the smear territory and moving into someone should do something about Hasan Piker territory, just fomenting so much hatred with the hopes that, you know, someone who's watching Fox News tries to, you know, take violent action against me directly or my family. I mean, this is not new for Fox News. This is something that, what's his face? Yeah, Tiller, the baby killer territory is where we're arriving at. Yeah, George Tiller, the O'Reilly Factor. Tiller was discussed in 28 episodes of the Fox News talk show, The O'Reilly Factor, in the years leading up to his death, focusing national attention on his practice. Although he later denied it, the show host Bill O'Reilly sometimes described him as Tiller the Baby Killer, a nickname that Congressman Bob Dornan had used on the floor of the U.S. House of Representatives. In November 2006, O'Reilly aired an exclusive report on the O'Reilly Factor, saying that he had an inside source with an official clinic documentation indicating that Tiller performed late-term abortions to alleviate temporary depression in pregnant women. O'Reilly characterized Tiller as a savage on the loose, killing babies willy-nilly, and accused him of operating a death mill and of protecting the rapists of children. He suggested that Tiller performed abortions for women who had a bit of a headache or anxiety, or who felt a bit blue. In June 2007, O'Reilly said on air that he would not be Tiller if there is a judgment day, also including in that judgment Kansas Governor Kathleen Sebelius and other Kansas politicians who support Tiller's business of destruction. O'Reilly's campaign against Tiller included the on-air disclosure and confidential patient information provided by former Kansas Attorney General Phil Kline. For this breach of professional conduct, Kline's law license was eventually suspended indefinitely. But they haven't gone this far with you, though? You think they haven't gone this far? They've gone way further. What are you talking about? Bill O'Reilly did 28 instances of news coverage on George Tiller before someone went to the church that he was at and killed him. O'Reilly denied responsibility for Tiller's murder and defended his campaign against Tiller, saying, "When I heard about Tiller's murder, I knew pro-abortion zealots and Fox News haters would attempt to blame us for the crime, and that's exactly what has happened." The level of slander, smears as an America hater, as a terrorist, as the arch terrorist, Islamist jihadist that wants death and destruction for all Americans, that wants to murder Americans left and right, that wants to lynch black people, but also is anti-white and wants to do the great replacement, which is completely fucking ridiculous. I've already had Rupert Murdoch's media outlet outside of my house twice now. Once with a drone, with aerial photos of my house. What do you think that is? Why do you think they're doing that? This has been happening on a daily basis since the end of March. Virtually every single day. Hundreds of articles have been written. And there's one other difference here. There's no defense from the liberal media side as well. There is no defense from liberal media. There's no like, this is actually going into a dangerous territory. This is actually broaching dangerous territory where they're actively trying to foment violence against this person that they're declaring to be a dangerous terrorist, a dangerous radical. These are the same people who also complained and said that their Nazi policies were actively, their Nazi policies should not be called out as Nazi style policies because that they were, threatening violence against prominent Republicans. So yeah. What do you think this is? And it only is taking place because I made the foolish mistake of throwing this community's weight around in elections. First and foremost, the goal here is, of course, to engage in a disciplining operation. So anyone else that wants to do this, think twice before attempting. They want to punish people for speaking out. What? Hey, did you know that there's a discrete website with 54 academic clarifications of circulated disinfo clips targeting you up since November 2025? Were you ever notified of this? I don't know what that is. I have no idea what you're talking about. Yeah, I mean, this is a threat. This is a clear-cut threat. They want to silence not just myself, but they want to silence this movement. It's not dissimilar to what the Biden administration and the Trump administration that continued along in the same way, what they did to the pro-Palestine movement, the student encampments, arresting them. What's remarkable about it, once again, is the fact that Democrats were like, we got to activate young men. We need our own Joe Rogan of the left. Who's the Joe Rogan of the left? Oh, it's Hasan. And now They're going, oh, not like this. So yeah, this isn't a great situation to be in. I won't lie. I mean, I'm a very stubborn person, so I'm going to continue pushing through it, but hopefully they'll let up at some point. But it's crazy.
Earlier this hour, well, they just need to stay away from him. You know, the problem with that is it's not the vicinity.
The problem with it is you just laugh or complain about this instead of taking legal action and demanding them to apologize and retract. That's how this shit spread, and that's why COVID is repeating it too. You don't fight these lies. You just let them get away with this. Not smart. Start fucking demanding apologies and retractions. Thanks, Chatter. Thank you
To
for the
Hassan
advice.
Piker, it's the participation that they have with him. Like, I don't think there's much difference between these candidates and him, whether they sit next to him or not.
I think one of the worst aspects of this is how lonely it is here. I'll be honest. I have my community. I have this movement broadly, but like everyone is obviously busy with their own thing. But it does suck that there are very few, like, candidates, politicians. They love what we have to bring to the table. They love the fundraisers. They love the rallies. But it does kind of suck at times. And same with media. Media loves giving me coverage, but there's no pushback against this shit until it's going to be, far too late to push back at all. And even then, I'm not so certain. Like, I'll be honest. I feel like if someone assassinated me, I don't think the Democratic Party would, there'd probably be plenty of Democrats who would be throwing a fucking party. There wouldn't be a shit ton of prominent Democrats who would be like, this is unacceptable. How do we get here? Because we all know how it got here. It's happening right now. It's happening right now in broad daylight, and no one is saying a damn fucking thing. It's crazy.
What's your take?
No, you're exactly right. These people spend so much time talking about universal health care. They need to talk about universal therapy. These people have just absolutely lost the plot. Look at what this guy is saying, and he represents an increasingly large swath of the electorate of the Democrat Party. They can't run away from this base. In fact, this base is overtaking the Democrat Party. Just this past week, Chuck Schumer was forced to endorse these DSA candidates, and I guarantee you there's a lot more coming down the pipeline.
Well, over the weekend, a news anchor pressed El Sayed on Hassan Piker's controversial 9/11 mark. Watch.
I think Hassan himself would say that was a dumb statement. He disavowed it. So yes, America didn't deserve 9/11, but to sit here and play gotcha politics with a dumb thing somebody said out of context that they disavowed themselves to say, oh well, what does that mean about what you think? I want to be held accountable for what I say and what I do, rather than this idea that we're so stuck in cancel culture that all of us agreed was a bad idea back in 2020, but we seem to want to bring back.
Yeah, but El Sayed used him on the night before of that victory. Like, they'll use this guy. Absolutely. They'll take him. They'll pull him out like a boogeyman whenever they need.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And it's absolutely insane, too, that he says that we need more context to understand, Hassan Piker saying that America deserves...
No politician ever, I don't care how progressive they are, will ever give a fuck about you. It's time you realize this. I mean, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. As long as they put the policies in the bag, I'm there. Okay?
9/11. There's no additional context needed. We heard what he said. We know him to be the anti-American bigot that he is. There's no further clarity needed on our end.
All right, I want to show this. It's the same Hassan Piker who just last month pointed out to his viewers that he adorned his set with a photo of the attack.
You might have noticed some changes behind me. I finally framed the Cutie Cinderella newspaper from 9/11, the morning of 9/12, the newspaper right there. The newspaper that covered 9/11. It's now officially sitting behind me.
CJ, you're right.
Like, I don't even understand what the fucking, like, what the point of that is. Is there, like, I guess they're trying to say, like, oh no, he loves 9/11. That's why he put it behind him. Like, as though it's not one of the most significant news stories of all of our lives. Like they literally are like, no, if you're Muslim, you can't say anything about 9/11. You can't you can't even recognize its significance. I'm a fucking media professional. Like that part is actually the most insane. You know what I mean? They're like, oh, he's agitating us. He's agitating us. He's doing it on purpose. He's like flexing like I did 9/11 or some shit. Okay.
Reaction.
I mean, that part is like 100% Islamophobia through and through. So if I catch any of you dumb motherfuckers in here if I catch anyone in here being like, well, don't you feel like you lean into, as you said, America deserved 9/11? Like, you are 100% caving to 1,000% Islamophobic narrative making here. Like, that's it. Little F here. I don't know what's going on, but we're back.
Absolutely disgusting. And again, these are who the leaders of the Democrat Party are choosing to associate themselves with, choosing to campaign alongside. This is their party. They don't get to run away from these figures anymore. Imagine if this was a Republican running around with Nick Fuentes. He would be rightfully condemned. But when it's Hasan Piker, they get a pass? I don't think so.
Look, I want to put a fine point on this, and we haven't shown it. It's tough to show some of the things that he is known to have said because it's on video and it's him saying it. But there's so many expletives, you can't even bleep it all out. I've not been able to ask anybody about this like I would want to ask him. Why did you say this? He says, I'm a racist. We missed the good times when they were lynching blacks in this country.
Oh, my God. Come on, dude. Really? Really? Oh, my Lord. Oh, my Lord. Jesus Christ. He's like, I shudder. I shudder. No one but American-born citizens should be allowed to hold any government position. This guy has probably no idea that myself and Abdul El-Sayed are both American-born citizens.
Think about James Clyburn, Democrat in South Carolina, saying some things about his problems with this side of his party, not looking like certain people in this country. Your last take.
You're exactly right. And black voters are not going for this. You look at what just happened in Wisconsin. I guess those people like Thanksgiving a little too much over there because Francesca Hong was defeated because of black voters. Black voters, young voters are not going for this socialist ride. They're rejecting them at the ballot box.
Yeah, Republicans should reach out and do what they can among that group, independents and everything. They've got time. CJ Pearson, great to see you. Thank you.
Jesus Christ, dude. Holy shit. That has to be an easy defamation case? No? Yeah, 100%. It's like I've never seen this level of lying. Like even with James Tallarico and stuff, like they'll clip them out of context. They'll try to make it seem like they're more woke than they are or anything like that. But in this circumstance, it's like a very overt way to lie about something so heinous. Anyway, I'll explore the legal avenues here. It's getting completely out of control. You know what I mean? This is not like James Tallarico's vegan. Like this is straight up saying that I love lynching and that I'm racist. Like it's disgusting. It's totally disgusting. I will make them apologize for it. And I will force them a retraction and we'll fucking celebrate it when it does happen. There's no shot.
We turn to several bombshell revelations about the Democrats' radical.
Yeah. But ultimately, like I said, this kind of culture war narratives, I don't think are going to work as effectively as these guys think they will. Especially because we have to be everywhere all at once. And we have to remind people of what Republicans are saying, what Republicans are doing. So, yeah. Yeah, the goal to drive Muslims from politics and all media is building the bigoted wing of the Dem establishment. That's 100% part of it for sure. This unspeakably evil clear-cut defamation, and they're doing it because they can't compete against Abdul Hassan and the Dems in the realm of policy. 100%. I'm sure you have, but have you ever considered posting radically about the loneliness and about how you feel towards these dangers? Your post clearly captured the attention from these ghouls and you can help some lib outlets show you a bit of grace? Fuck no. No, dude. Remember, everyone operates with the notion that their enemies are ontologically evil. It'll just be a moment of celebration. It'll be like, see, we're winning. That's it. There's never been a moment where I've been like radically transparent about how I feel about these sorts of things. And then that caused people to be like, you know what, I'm gonna second guess what I feel about this guy.
Senate nominee in Michigan on social media, Abdul El-Sayed, portrays an over-the-top, happy-go-lucky activist, loves to sing and dance, but in reality, El-Sayed's policies, guess what? And policy positions, associations, as we already know, past comments, that paints a very different picture. In addition to hating Michigan's storied Mackinac Island, there is a long list of other wonderful American things.
I have an interview with Aisha Wahab in a second. We're going to be talking about her race. At 3 p.m., I'm going to be talking to Aisha Wahab, who has a special election coming up. AIPAC has been dumping boatloads of money into it. I want to bring some attention to this race. It's California 14 candidate to replace Eric Swalwell.
Abdul El-Sayed apparently absolutely despises, according to the K-Files.
What the fuck? ACLU and CARE, the guy who was just interviewed on Fox News, is going to be running a pink wash super PAC. Check out their partners in language. Next 250, a new declaration for America. This is it. Wait, they're partnering with like ADC? What?
A report on CNN, a now removed video from 2024 shows El-Sayed complaining, quote, fireworks suck. I love fireworks. Anyway, he begged Americans to find a different way to celebrate the 4th of July, citing concerns over the environment and children and pets. But that's not all. In another deleted video from 2022, get this, El-Sayed mocking concerns surrounding the crisis at our southern border, proclaiming that the border, quote, doesn't even make the top 5 among issues that people in the U.S. actually care about, that affect their lives, according to the same report. Other clips show El-Sayed calling for the Second Amendment to be repealed, replaced with a right to government-run health care. And the newly nominated Democrat also trashing football over its toxic masculinity. Take a look.
Football is very much associated with a particularly masculine and oftentimes toxically masculine culture, and so much of it was about you wanted to be able to get back up and play for your team, and you really aren't allowed to show pain or vulnerability. That's part of the sport.
All right, in a state dominated by the Michigan Wolverines, Michigan State football, the Detroit Lions. I don't think that's going to go over very well. But according to CNN, El-Sayed even compared football to slavery, openly questioned if the sport could be, quote, ethical. Apparently, El-Sayed also had ethical concerns about cash bail in prisons. Take a look at this.
We've got policies like money bail, which basically force people into jail because they're poor. And beyond that, right, the broader question of how many people are left languishing in prison facilities who don't need to be there. Any and all efforts to get people out of jails and prisons and to keep people out of jails and prisons is policy that we need to be investing in, particularly right now. But this doesn't end when the pandemic's over, right? We shouldn't have to have a global pandemic to force us to find our humanity. This should just be what we do because it's the right thing to do.
So El-Sayed has a lot of deeply profound ethical concerns about cash bail, football, fireworks, but he has no problem at all with his buddy, his pal, his BFF, Hasan Piker. You remember the guy that called for the streets to run red with the blood of landlords? The guy that, of course, praised 9/11, blamed America from a 9/11, praised Hamas, trashed African Americans The guy that dresses up like Chairman Mao, his friend, in a statement to CNN, the El Sayed campaign is trying to distance their candidate from nearly all of these past positions. But keep in mind, these are recent comments from El Sayed, some within the last 2 years. Now, much earlier, 2009, as a medical student, Abdul El Sayed was interviewed by the New York Times for an article about Islamic banking unearthed by the Washington Free Beacon. Traditionally, in Islam, interest on loans is prohibited, creating the need for alternatives to mortgages. But El Sayed took it a step further, telling the Times, quote, ultimately, the question is, when I die and stand before God and go through everything I did in my life, I don't.
All right, we're gonna start our we're gonna go into our candidate interview with Aisha Wahab. Like I said, running for California 14. Okay, Aisha Wahab is a California 14 candidate to replace Eric Swalwell in the special election. She won in the June primary by 26 points and is a current target of AIPAC. Okay, hold on, let me get the Zoom link going real quick. Dr. Aisha Wahab is in the building. Hello.
Hi there. How are you?
Hi. Let me just put you up on the main screen real quick because we're live already.
No worries.
All right. Here it is. Okay. Let me reframe you as well. These are the wonderful moments in live production. Okay. All right. Okay. All right. I think I did it. All right. Dr. Aisha Wahab, thank you so much for coming on the broadcast. Your general special election date is on August 18th. The regular election general is on November 3rd. Your opponent is Melissa Hernandez. You're a California state senator, former Hayward City Council member, and progressive candidate running in the August 18th special election runoff for California's 14th congressional district to replace disgraced former Representative Eric Swalwell. Raised in the foster care system after your parents passed away at an early age, you made history as the first Afghan American woman elected to public office in the United States and the first Muslim woman elected to the California State Senate. You've been a fighter your whole life. After winning the June primary by 26 points, you are now facing over $5 million in attack ads, including over $1.3 million from AIPAC-funded dark money groups attempting to block a working class progressive like yourself from representing East Bay in Congress. So thank you so much for coming on. Hopefully that introduction did you justice here.
Absolutely. They dropped another 1.2 today.
Oh, wow. That is,
Yep.
I mean,
6 days to go for the election day, and they dropped another 1.2.
That is unfortunately all too common in American politics right now. But let's get started. So when Congressman Eric Swalwell resigned in April amid sexual misconduct allegations, there were party leaders, including Hakeem Jeffries, that tried to broker a caretaker agreement to bypass primary and handpick a replacement. You refused to sign on to that backroom deal. You forced an open special election where you won the primary by 26 percentage points. Why was it critical for you to reject the party bosses trying to pick Swalwell's successor behind closed doors? And what did district voters communicate through that primary vote?
Yeah, first and foremost, I will say Hakeem didn't actually call to broker any type of deal, right? But I will say that we had, individuals like Congressmember Zolofgren call and, and a number of others in the California delegation to call. And they were like, look, we have this plan. We think that, should be a caretaker. And the list of names, and I just want to be very frank with you guys, is that they had 2 deceased people that they mentioned first, right? They mentioned Senator Ellen Corbett, and I was like, she's deceased. And then they mentioned Elaine Easton, who is a legend in this district. And I said, she also passed away. And mind you, both of them have historically supported me. I honored them on the Senate floor, the whole 9. And then they picked names outside of the district, right? They picked people that weren't even close to the district. And so slowly in the conversation, I was realizing, okay, these people don't even know my district. They don't seem to care about who is really representing us. And, they were questioning my patriotism and, the state of the world is at risk and so forth. There's not been a single vote that is tied down to one Democrat, voting this way or that way, number one. Number two is the fact that they didn't even have a plan. When you ask them, okay, so how are you going to prop up this person? They didn't have a plan. They weren't going to back them up financially. There was a lot of things going on. The Democratic Party actually switched up when you could get the endorsement for the special election. And so it was very, very much coordinated. I don't think that they were going to really, really support me to begin with, to be completely frank with you. And it wasn't a real negotiation or let's brainstorm together. It was, this is what we want. This is what's going to happen. Then they leaked to the press this letter that they supposedly had everybody sign. And when the press called me, I said, what letter? I didn't even see a letter. Right. So it wasn't fair from the start. It wasn't a conversation. It was like a dictator telling you, this is what's up. And, that's just not me.
Yeah. I'm glad that you fought through this process. It's a little bit complicated. So if you don't mind me asking, like, if you could explain it. So the resignation triggered the special election, but that's only to fill the seat for the current term. Yep. You've already won the primaries for both the special election and the regular election. Can you briefly explain the upcoming general election to viewers and why you're participating in basically 4 elections across 5 months?
Yeah, I'm exhausted. I'm not gonna lie. We need the money too. We're burning dry, if you will. But the way it worked was that the August 18th is because the June 2nd and the June 16th primary, the special primary, right? So those two are attached to fulfill Swalwell's term that he's ending in this December. Then in November is to start a brand new term in January and do the solid 2 years. That's kind of how it's going to roll out.
Okay. Let's get back to your background a little bit. So you were born to Afghan refugees in New York City who passed away when you were a young child. After some time in foster care, an Afghan couple from California adopted you and your sister. Then during the Great Recession, your adoptive family lost its business and home. You got laid off, and eventually you were priced out of Fremont and moved to Hayward, where you started organizing around housing. How did this experience of being foreclosed on and being priced out of your adopted hometown shape what you think Congress owes renters and working families?
First off, the average age for a first-time home buyer today is 40 years old, okay? And my parents' generation, it was in their 20s. If you really take a look at that, home ownership is where a lot of families build wealth, right? And I always say that the banks were bailed out multiple times. They got a cash infusion during the Great Recession. They basically foreclosed on all of these assets. They kept the asset and sold them. And literally millions of Americans are renters till this day, like myself. Even if with a good paying job in the Bay Area, you can't own a home. You're still renting, and the rents aren't even cheap. And I think there's a lot of conversation around home ownership. I think housing is stability and a human right. As a kid, going from place to place, you realize how much a home means, right? So the way I describe it is always, if you have a single mom who has a kid and they're moving from apartment to apartment to apartment to apartment because it's cheaper, maybe $100, $200 cheaper, they're moving that kid out of a school system. They're moving further and further, or potentially just in different cities. It does not provide stability for the kid or the community or the parent or anybody. Housing is a human right, in my opinion. We have to do more for home ownership and getting private equity firms out of the market. Single family homes, home ownership should belong to regular people.
So that's obviously one element in your policy platform that I assume is considered far too disruptive. You're placing the interests of the working class rather than the interests of real estate developers that have, especially in the case with California as a state, have been creating hurdle after hurdle to stop additional housing units from being developed. Unfortunately, to keep the price of housing as high as physically possible, which prices people out. But there are other super PACs out there that are also putting the beat on you, putting you in the crosshairs. Outside super PACs linked to AIPAC, including United Democracy Project and Bold America, have dropped over $5 million into California 14. They're running attack ads against you, and they're boosting your opponent. You've publicly described this spending spree as election interference by a lobby seeking a puppet they can't control. Why is AIPAC spending millions of dollars to keep a progressive state senator out of Congress in a place like California, in a state like California? And how are you responding to the dark money attacks on the airwaves?
Okay, so number one, we are struggling. We do need a lot of help on this race, right? We are the California Democratic endorsed candidate. We are the labor endorsed candidate. We have grassroots support. The fact that, everybody's trying to push against the California Democratic Party's endorsed candidate is a violation right there, right? If we're talking about institutions, right? But they truly, truly don't want somebody that has an independent thought. I will be very clear when we're talking about AIPAC. My Jewish Senate colleagues are literally confused as to why they are spending this much money against me. Mind you, I worked on Senate Concurrent Resolution 105 that had a lot of my Jewish colleagues in support. We voted on it 35-0 in the Senate floor that literally talked about human rights in Gaza. Okay. We specifically have been very much trying to be collaborative and work towards some type of future that we can actually see as achievable. The only thing that's left is, this is pure racism and prejudice, right? My last name, people can point to it. It's my adoptive last name, right? When you are talking about, who and what I represent, Uncle Sam raised me, point blank. I grew up in the foster care system, right? So what's left? It's the prejudice, it's the ignorance, it's the fear. And it's really just having diverse voices talk about, it's not a zero-sum game in the Middle East. It's not a zero-sum game on international rights and human rights. It's we can care for all people. And I say this very clearly. As much as I care about the foster care kid in Alameda County, I care about the kid being detained in ICE detention centers here in the United States. And I care about the kid that is literally being starved and pulled out of rubble abroad. So you can love and care about human rights for all people.
One of the attack ads the AIPAC is funding, and your opponent's campaign communications is also claiming, is that you're soft on crime. They're specifically misrepresenting your legislative votes on solicitation laws. You've added an entire section to your campaign site addressing all of AIPAC's false claims. How do you push back against corporate funded smear campaigns that weaponize public safety fears while ignoring your actual legislative record?
Now, this is a Republican effort, right? If you take a look at this, like Republicans tend to run this type of effort. I'm actually the candidate that's endorsed by a lot of law enforcement, not because they always agree with me, but because I've been always fair and transparent as to why. Public safety is one of those committees that you could damage a person's life and literally generations to come forever. And you could also help people and make sure that you're prioritizing victims' rights. I prioritize victims' rights first and foremost. My father was actually murdered in New York City. It's a cold case. I'm the author of, a survivor's bill of rights, making sure that we're auditing rape test kits and so much more to really bring justice, even years later, to those victims, because closure is important. What they're trying to do is, first off, SB 14, and I'll be very clear about it and transparent, is about human trafficking. I'm actually a co-author of that bill, right? It died for years, 10 years prior to me coming into the Senate. We got that signed by the governor. SB 1414, which is where the 16, 17-year-olds come into place, I actually voted in support of increasing penalties there. There are amendments that were taken that I, as a chair, have to vote for because it's on the table. I can't negotiate or make the motion. So that motion was made by a different senator. And then we also voted for AB 379, which protects the 16, 17-year-olds. When we're talking about fentanyl, we passed AB 701, 100% increased penalties on if you're harming a child, if you're trafficking a person, or soliciting. We've covered all of that plus fentanyl and real serious drug dealers, right? So literally they are lying and misleading the public.
You have ops in other sectors as well. On the utilities front, Pacific Gas and Electric, PG&E, reported record profits of $2.4 billion, while state regulators approved 6 separate rate hikes in a single year. In my experience, at least, going all around the country, utilities providers are oftentimes like public enemy number one amongst the masses. They're very frustrated with DTE in Michigan as well, and PGE is all the same here in California. You introduced Senate Bill 332 to cap rate hikes to inflation and directly told regulators that ratepayers are not a bank. How do you plan on taking the fight against monopoly utilities to the federal level, and what federal measures are needed to stop energy companies from price gouging working families?
I think the monopoly system as a whole, antitrust laws need to be reinforced and actually strengthened. It's not just utilities, it's across the board. Every single industry has monopolized, right? And we have not really taken down some of these corporations that really have a monopoly on the industry as a whole, right? Whether we're talking about healthcare, whether we're talking about utilities, whether we're talking about any of these industries, they fight transparency laws, they fight price gouging laws, they fight any law that specifically is trying to prioritize human beings and quality of life. I will say I was very disappointed with PG&E. We have an infrastructure that's rated at a C level that literally PG&E has a monopoly of 70% of Northern California's entire infrastructure. And yet their rate increases, the 6 that you referenced, one of them was specifically for profit sharing with their shareholders, right? So over and over, our bill had 8 components. We tied it to metrics of safety metrics and much more. And they said that your bill is the nuclear option. We can't do this, when literally it was a very fair option and they didn't even want to come to the table. But they could hire so many lobbyists to dominate the Capitol and try to kill those efforts.
Let's talk about public transit. So, or actually, you know what? Before that, I want to hear your opinion on data centers, because this was a primary motivator, I would say, in the race that took place, and the gubernatorial race that took place in Wisconsin. Tech firms and utilities across Northern California are rapidly expanding these massive AI data centers. How do the people in this district feel about it? And also, what do you plan on doing to maybe even curb back the massive amount of grid power necessary, the water capacity, and also the other threat, which is driving up energy prices, driving up utility bills, and also disrupting climate goals? How do you plan on addressing the energy demands of AI data centers at the federal level, and what guardrails will you put in place to ensure big tech doesn't pass grid expansion costs and environmental strains onto the working class ratepayers?
So we've actually had a number of bills come through the state legislature where we are saying that data centers should pay their fair price. They can't be paying the same amount that you and I when we're renting or owning a home. That's first and foremost, right? They have to have a different tier of how much they pay. Number 2 is that we actually do need to listen to the scientists and the environmentalists and the folks that have studied these industries for 10, 15 years plus. The problem with our policymaking, both at the state capitol and the federal level, is that lobbyists dominate so much, and they piecemeal policy to fix the quote unquote problem more specifically for their industry at that moment in time. They're not really problem solvers, right? So if you take a look at the way we compete with China, China is actually planning for 10, 15 years down the road. The United States, we have not done so, right? And then we have these band-aid solutions where, okay, let's do a moratorium, let's do this, let's do that. And industry won't allow that, right? Let's just be very transparent about that. These industries, these lobbyists have really dominated the capital, if you will. And so for me, I would like to talk to some of the folks that are in my district. I have Livermore Labs in Sandia, and they're PhDs, and they're very, big geniuses on these topics, including AI. And they have better solutions that we actually have to listen to. For example, in my district in San Jose, the data center folks were trying to say that they don't want to use gray water, which is recycled water, to cool down their systems. Why? Why can't we develop the technology where gray water is viable? Why are we using the very finite resources that we have? And so I believe in regulation. I believe that we need to ensure that we're protecting human beings and life at all costs, first and foremost. And industry can advance. And obviously we're moving into the cloud, and all of our infrastructure is in data centers and much more. But that cost can also be shifted onto the actual industry that is benefiting from this versus us paying it out and our tax dollars literally subsidizing everything they do.
Are you in favor of a moratorium? So you're in favor of a moratorium on data centers?
I am, but I don't think that's the finite solution, if that makes sense. I don't think that's the end all be all. I think that there needs to be a lot more process on policy and getting a little bit deeper into that.
Yeah. So, what's the appetite for, how does your district feel about data centers in general? Because like in my experience, everywhere I've gone to, like, especially if there is a data center in the backyard of like oftentimes underserved communities, like people are very frustrated. There's a lot of noise pollution. There's a lot of fear. Some of which might even be exaggerated, but like ultimately this is a big driver for a lot of people. Is California 14 is similar in your
I think
experience?
it's mixed, and I'll tell you why. Because we are the bedroom community for Silicon Valley, and as a state senator, I also represent Silicon Valley. So a lot of the tech companies are there. We are the first to adopt pretty much any and every technology. I'm just going to be very transparent. And the majority of our residents work in the tech space, right? They are the folks that are the engineers and much more. So it's a far more nuanced conversation there. I will tell you that there are tech leaders and tech employees that are deeply disturbed and concerned about data centers and AI. They are the first to say, Aisha, we got to do something about this. We got to really bring in the brain trust and work on policy that makes sense. There are obviously industries that downplay the things you mentioned, the pollution, the disturbance for the community, and much more. And I think the average person in our district is concerned, right? Like there are data centers being talked about in the local cities, and the larger community is pushing back, but the city councils are the ones that decide it. So I think that it's a mixed bag depending on who you talk to in our district.
Okay, that's actually very interesting. I didn't even consider that there are a lot of tech folk that are actively working for the companies that require these data centers. Okay, getting back to public transit now. Now we can talk about it. It's one of my favorite topics. But your runoff opponent, Melissa Hernandez, currently serves the board president of BART, which is currently facing a $375 million structural deficit. And has prepared contingency plans that include 30% fare hikes, service reductions, and closing up a third of all transit stations. I want to hear your perspective on public transit. Is something that's important to me. I feel like BART, regardless of the criticisms that it receives, is one of the like only functioning forms of public transit, like robust, readily available public transit in the state. And there are a lot of downstream consequences to culture, I think, and like societal formation that makes San Francisco a wonderful place, that makes the region a wonderful place, a much more livable place. And I want to hear your broader perspective on that. But also I want to ask you, should working class transit riders be forced to absorb these higher fares and service cuts, or should Congress intervene to fund public transit as an essential public service?
I think all of our infrastructure should be funded by the federal government, and we actually need to deeply invest in our infrastructure across the board. That's our roads, that is our transit systems, our public transit needs to be fully funded, right? We are one of the few nations in the Western Hemisphere, if you will, that don't really actually fund that much, right? And one of my problems with BART, and I'm going to be very honest with you, so as a state senator, I represent over 1 million people. If you actually ask BART, how many unique individual riders do you have? They don't ever want to share that number with you, right? They're very opposed to just being very straight up. The fact of the matter is that they largely serve an average about 87,000 unique riders. So if I represent 1 million people, there's 9 Bay Area counties. That's a very small portion, right? I do not believe that the average individual should be paying those rate increases. I have actually advocated, and I want to be very clear about this, is that, for example, New York has one, New York Metro, right? LA has one consolidated metro system, right? Whereas the Bay Area, 9 Bay Area counties have like nearly 30 public transit boards. Okay. And that's not even competing with the Waymos and the Lyfts and the Ubers and the whatever else, is being developed in the Bay. And so when you see that, you're kind of like, okay, this is a lot of duplicative services. It's not faster. It's not safer necessarily. It's not necessarily cleaner. I did an audit of Bay Area transit, both Alameda County and Contra Costa County. And literally the funds that they have in their reserves only covers 2 months. So their reserves depleted. And again, what are you doing to really make this more viable of an option for an average consumer? San Francisco is very different than the East Bay, and I want to say that because they have Muni. We also subsidize San Francisco. So my colleagues in San Francisco, we always debate about this. Whereas nearly 76% of my district drive, right? It's a suburban area, but they only drive because public transit is not as reliable, right? It is not as efficient. It is not, extended hours and 24/7 where
Yeah.
you're like, I'm gonna trust this. So I think there's a lot of room to do better. And I personally would love a very robust transit system.
All right, perfect. So again, this goes back to tech a little bit, but also ICE. We're going to talk about Flock. Automated license plate reader cameras from Flock have expanded across Alameda County and the East Bay. Recent investigations revealed that local law enforcement share this license plate data with out-of-state agencies and federal immigration authorities in violation of state law. There's also every other week another 20 cops that are caught surveilling their exes all around the country using Flock illegally. What federal privacy protections will you fight for in Congress to prevent automated surveillance networks from feeding data to ICE? And I also want to ask you about you co-authoring SB 627, banning face coverings for federal and local law enforcement as well. Yeah.
Yeah. So in this race, I'm the only one that has called for ICE to be abolished, primarily because it's such an evil org at this point. There is no reforming ICE. It needs to be put back into the DOJ and a real system with dignity and respect for all people. Let alone, I will highlight the sexual assaults that are happening to minors in ICE facilities where they're moving the minors into Texas and most likely probably performing sterilizations and abortions, right? Completely illegal. And so I highlight that. I am very opposed to a surveillance state. Big Brother is not, something I'm interested in at all. And there's, there's the debate of like, should we give them tools? Should we not? And I will highlight why our sanctuary policies in California work. When ICE has rated LA versus Texas, right? LA area is a very rich population that they can go after, and they're using every single tool they can. But literally, it is 7% of the deportation rate compared to the 25+% that Texas is doing in the same time frame. Why? Because our policies say you can't use our government facilities, you can't park in these areas, we are not going to share data, things like that. Obviously, people are violating those rights, right? Especially with the Trump administration coming in and saying, oh no, we're going to try every loophole we can, including the potential of Bay Area raids. Here's the thing. I have a couple of bills in this space that literally said you have to show your face. You have to, ensure that we as like a community can trust you. We also have a bill that says that you could potentially sue these law enforcement officers, and really, kind of tackle that as your actual constitutional right. And in fact, the families can plan if they, God forbid, are potentially planning for a potential deportation, that they can say, hey, I'm going to have my neighbor, my cousin, my loved one take care and take authority of my children. So there's been so many bills that I've worked on in this space to protect vulnerable communities and the immigration, failures of today. But I will say this, law enforcement is just one of the problems. What we have deeply in California, as well as in this nation, is data brokers that are selling your information, everything from your movements to what restaurant you went to surveillance pricing of, hey, Aisha loves, hot Cheetos and she always buys it on a Sunday with a Red Bull. We're going to charge her more for that. The data on us, we are willingly giving it based on our iPhone versus Android and different marketing prices and so much. So I've been very, very consistent in trying to crack down on this. And this is when we talk about AI, when we talk about data crunching, we have profiles built on us, and you can buy a person's entire movement on the dark web or from these data brokers for a solid week for $160. Okay. That is not something I'm trying to promote. And so I want to be very clear that this is something that deeply worries me, especially as I work in tech. And even when you, for example, order an Uber from an airport, they know when your battery is at 10% and they will charge you more and you don't even know it.
Yeah. Surveillance pricing. Do you? So you said you're in favor of ICE abolition and like packaging it under the arm of law enforcement, potentially under the DOJ, or even, I mean, like going back to the INS structure that existed pre 2001. I believe it was 2003.
I would like an overhaul on, for example, ICE was created like in 2003. Let's just be very
2003. Sorry, I got the
and
name.
as a kid that grew up during that entire time frame, and having different loved ones and different immigration statuses, this district is super diverse, right? We have every single status from DACA to green card to special immigrant visa to EB-5, H-1B, you name it. And I will say that our immigration policies have literally been stagnant since the 70s, right? And we haven't really done anything. There's one big mass, like, let's accept everybody in the 80s, and we haven't done a massive overhaul there. I think it's fair to say that, yeah, sure, we can say that we would like to see who's coming in and who's not, but the immigration policies in itself is very race related, right? They're not interested in bringing in people that can do work and be fair to them. Even how this country treats migrant workers, right? They're working in 100+ degree weather. They're getting paid nothing. Housing is not really provided for them. And then we're saying also, hey, you're not going to get health insurance or any of these benefits, but literally you're being treated like a second-class citizen in so many ways. So I think that there's a lot of dignity we need to put back in our policies.
Do you believe in prosecuting ICE as well, like for the criminal acts
Yes,
that
all the violations, absolutely.
Okay.
As I said, we have a bill that literally says you can go after an officer who's violating your rights. We've seen mass, like literally, there have been more deaths by the hands of ICE than the war in Iran right now. Like, I just want to put that into context.
Yeah, it's completely unacceptable. Let's talk about Medicare for All. Community hospitals like St. Rose Hospital in Hayward, the city's only emergency room, nearly collapsed under systemic financial pressures before being absorbed into the Alameda Health System. Meanwhile, over 70% of St. Rose patients rely on Medi-Cal, while corporate healthcare networks and private equity firms continue to buy up providers and, of course, drive up prices. Do you support Medicare for All? And how will you use federal policy to protect safety net hospitals while stopping private equity greed in healthcare?
Definitely. So first and foremost, fully support Medicare for All, and very proud to be endorsed by the Progressive Caucus and Pramila Jayapal and so forth. I will say St. Rose, largely does protect a lot of the most vulnerable community members. It's in Hayward. Hayward is probably my least affluent city. I live in that city. I'm a renter here. And we were, my team was the first to tell them, hey, you can get a loan, which was like several $1 million for that hospital to keep it afloat before Alameda County Health System stepped in. And then we asked for the state to forgive that loan because we knew that St. Rose was in no way going to be able to cover that. So that safety net hospital is incredibly important. I will say with HR 1, there have been massive cuts to pretty much every institution we care about, but specifically healthcare. And here's the reality of our community clinics and our community hospitals and much more. They're still going to see that patient. They're still going to have to pay for the coverage of that patient. They're still going to have to do the work to take care. They cannot turn people away. So we are fooling ourselves when we say, oh, okay, they're not going to come. They're still going to come, but the issue that they will face will be more severe because they didn't want to go to the hospital. They didn't want to get charged for that visitation and things like that. So, my ultimate concern is really making sure that we're taking care of our most vulnerable community members. And that includes, through healthcare, education, and social safety nets.
Absolutely. Let's talk about housing. As chair of the California Senate Housing Committee, you led legislative efforts in one of the most unaffordable housing markets in the nation, where East Bay families are paying over half their income in rent. What's your legislative strategy in Congress to repeal the Faircloth Amendment, fund social housing, and stop private equity firms from buying up single-family homes?
So I'll tell you a couple things. Number one, I'm the only legislator that has a social housing bill that got signed by the governor, SB 555, that really actually is trying to prioritize and really understand how we can do social housing. Many other countries have already done it, and including capitalist countries, right? As much as they try to, talk about socialism and much more. Number two is the fact that I actually led a bill to put a moratorium on private equity firms purchasing single family homes. And I'm going to tell you the cool part about this was I had a Republican co-author on that bill who's a former realtor, and I had the realtors of California be my lead witness. This is no longer a right and left issue. This is a human rights / American people issue, because everyone knows 96% of Americans, regardless of age, demographic of any kind, or political affiliation, believe home ownership is the cornerstone of the American dream. And I personally will be supporting all those efforts. And like I said, cracking down on some of these monopolies, private equity firms, and big money really being interested in the things that we all care about as regular human beings.
Seems like this is an area of particular interest for yourself. Does it perhaps have something to do with your academic work as well?
Yes, I did do a lot of I got my doctorate in social work, and I deeply care about reducing extreme economic inequality. Housing stability is the core function of that. I will say this, and as much as we fight for, hey, we're going to fight for these wage increases and reducing healthcare and things like that, the number one cost for every single family is housing first. Right. And that is something that if we can kind of really tackle and allow people to have a home, have stability, know what their payment is a year from now, 5 years from now, whatever the case may be, you have far more stability to tackle the other issues.
Yeah. So I wanted to ask you about banning algorithmic rent setting and stopping private equity firms from buying up huge portfolios of homes altogether. But you already covered those bases. Is there anything else you want to talk about, especially because you introduced legislation targeting landlord junk fees and the price fixing?
Yeah, so I pushed a lot of different, I pushed SB 681 that eventually got absorbed into the budget. And I want to tell you why it got absorbed into the budget, because we knew we couldn't get it through the assembly because there's too many moderate characters there that are very much interested in the real estate lobby. So I worked really hard, being the system majority leader and the chair of housing with our pro tem and leadership to really say, look, we got to do something on affordability, and housing is the biggest concern. So we literally increased the renter's tax credit. So if you're making under $70,000 a year, you get money back in your pocket when you're paying your taxes. We put a down payment assistance program for $300 million, right, for first-time home buyers. We capped HOA fees to $100 if it has nothing to do with health or safety. We have the strongest protections on zombie mortgages, which is, a big issue right now across the nation. And I will tell you that the banks are suing us, right? I've been sued on multiple pieces of legislation by whether it's the banks, the chamber, or more specifically, these special interest groups that really just don't want to have fair policies, right? And I'm proud of the work that I've done. And I will also say that there are a lot of groups that are co-opted by developers saying, hey, yes, let's build more, build more, build more. But I also want to keep people housed and prioritize affordable housing, which is not their interest area.
What is, to switch gears for a second, I want to hear what is the angle of attack that you're receiving? Are you experiencing a lot of the same things that we've seen with Abdul Al-Sayed's race and Zoran's race beforehand as well, given your Afghan background?
Yeah.
Are the attacks as racialized as it has been in some of these other races?
Yeah, so 100%. If you take a look at all the comments, it's, race, religion, ageism a little bit, things like that. And stupid jokes. We've heard, these comments, every single time we've ran. Where do you get money? Who's funding you, outside interests, foreign, yada, yada, all of the things. My opponent has said nothing, dead silent. We're also seeing an uptick in what we consider bot attacks. More specifically, every time we post, there's always some random person from outside of the district, literally 0 friends, 1 or 2 posts, these fake images, things like that. we're asking actually today that these tech platforms need to actually crack down on some of the bots, right?
Oof, great.
Yeah, they're probably not going to do it, right? But we want to be very, very public about, like, look, we see what's going on. This is complete BS, right? We don't know what's real, what's fake. AI has gotten so good that, you don't know if it's legit, right? You see some of the AI images and memes and stuff like that. So it is what it is, but we also see our opponent has been dead silent. She's avoided every debate, every forum. She has not denounced the big APAC spending on her behalf. She has not denounced the fact that the mailers have darkened my skin, that they're trying to do this whole dog whistle with, leading with certain names and things like that. She did a literally, her team, the people that support her, did a mailer to Republicans saying she's endorsed by Republicans to the Republican Party. And then the mailer to Democrats, she's saying, I'm going to fight Trump, right? Pick a lane, right? So, this is a very negative, dirty smear campaign. It's coordinated attacks against us. We've been warned about it too. But we're now seeing like a massive uptick, including this $1.2 million, all the ads, all the TV commercials, digital, everything.
I want to ask you a little bit more about environmental protections. Working class neighborhoods along the I-880 industrial corridor in Hayward, Newark, and Union City suffer from disproportionate air pollution and elevated asthma rates driven by heavy diesel freight, warehouse expansion, and industrial manufacturing. Do you support the Green New Deal, and how will you ensure federal climate funding directly targets frontline East Bay communities?
Yeah, so absolutely, I support the Green New Deal. I also want to state that California has one of the strongest protections on environmental protections, and specifically Hayward is actually targeted and specifically mentioned as one of the communities that need more support. So I'm very proud of the work that we have done in regards to just, protecting the environment and really kind of pushing back on fossil fuel industries. There's a lot more work to be done. This is, these industries were not built overnight, and so we're not going to be able to walk away from them overnight either. And you see, even with the war in Iran, I want to be very clear. China is literally undercutting our dollar, our petrodollar, because it's very much tied to that. They are dominant in the EV market, right? Literally 70% monopoly in the EV market internationally. These tariffs are these fake prop ups of, our industries that we literally need to kind of prioritize innovation as well, and moving into this 21st century economy. And that 21st century economy means clean air, clean water for everybody, right? So I think that there's a lot of potential, but there's also a lot of potential for harm if we don't do the right thing by the people.
Yeah. We talk about competing with China a lot, but this is one area where China is absolutely dominating, and yet there's no investment or interest in competing with China in any way, shape, or form, even if it's like beneficial for every American citizen in the long run. It's actually kind of alarming. Let's talk about PACs and stock trading real quick. You refused the corporate utility PAC contributions. You championed government transparency in Sacramento. Meanwhile, members of Congress routinely trade individual stocks in industries they regulate, which, is very frustrating for a lot of people, including people who aren't even paying attention to politics that much. People bring up Nancy Pelosi as a person, but I mean, obviously the Trump administration has gone above and beyond in terms of that kind of corruption. Will you commit to co-sponsoring legislation to ban members of Congress from trading individual stocks and cryptocurrency? And how do we end corporate PAC dominance in congressional primaries?
I'll be honest with you. I don't know how we're gonna see a lot of movement. As you've seen in the past, there was a lot of different efforts to kind of ban this, right? And it's never been brought to the floor by leadership. That's the honest truth of it, right?
Yeah.
And so the way that it works, at least in the Senate, is that you have to say that you have a vote count, right? A hard vote count, and people change their votes and this and that. But me personally, I do believe that it's the right thing to do to ban this type of, for me, it's a conflict of interest. I think that's the case, right?
Yeah.
You could invest like I'm under 40 going into Congress. Of course, we have to think about our retirement and potentially invest in some type of 401k or whatever the case may be. But the stock trades that we are seeing in the millions of dollars per day, right? That 100% is conflict of interest, right?
Yeah.
I think that there are a lot of different models out there in the world that, if you are a federal government official at this level in Congress, in the Senate, in the White House, in the administration as a whole, there should be more limitations. You have to serve the good of the American people over yourself for financial gain. I have a bill, SB 1193, Alameda County transparency, that has been buck wild for the Alameda County supervisors. They unanimously voted no. And that just straight up says, look, the discretionary funds that you guys have, we need to see where it goes and what is the public good. And there has to be a whistleblower documentation as well as a conflict of interest for your entire staff. And they voted against it, right? They have been going, emailing. My opponent works for the president of the Board of Supervisors. And this county has largely been kind of targeted in a lot of different ways because there's a lot of corruption out there, right? Whether it's investigations, whether it's, tied to FBI raids in some of the local cities and elected officials. And the fact that they're opposed to this, especially as the California Department of Social Services has literally said that we're going to put you on a corrective action plan because your social services is failing. Like, that is what our money should be going to, right? Is protecting the most vulnerable, social services, safety nets, our American people, and the most vulnerable people at that.
All right. Last question before we get to rapid fire. You have been a prominent voice criticizing unconditional military assistance to foreign governments, calling for an immediate ceasefire in Gaza, condemning the genocide. This position has, of course, as we talked about already, naturally made your campaign a primary target for AIPAC spending. But I wanted to ask you directly, will you co-sponsor the Block the Bombs Act in Congress? And how do you connect foreign military spending to underfunded domestic infrastructure?
Yeah. So yes, I would co-sponsor that. I've been very clear about that. And take a look at this. Look, I'm an Afghan American. I was born here. I'm going to die here. I serve my country here. Right. And what I've seen amongst the Afghan diaspora is that there's no single generation that has been affected, not affected by war. Right. Every single generation, whether it's like the OGs to the younger, newer arrivals. Right. And I say this because what we see is just destruction, right? Civilization is completely destroyed. And that is what war really is, right? And so when we're talking about this, our effort as a nation should be diplomacy, regardless of whether or not we like the government or not. It is, okay, how are we going to utilize our dollars? If we are going to say we're going to engage with this nation and we want them to be a good faith actor, our dollars need to have some strings attached to it. Like, you are going to behave well, whether it's in Palestine or Israel or Afghanistan or Iran or wherever, right? We have stopped practicing diplomacy, and it's just point blank. You see the president tweet out, we're going to annihilate you guys, right? Yeah. That is no way for any elected official to behave, especially on such a serious matter of life and death. With that said, I'm very proud to have gotten a lot of my Jewish colleagues to support SCR 105 that literally talks about human rights in Gaza. We talk about both Palestinians and the Israeli victims there. We talk about holding the perpetrators accountable from both sides. We talk about, really, it was actually very difficult to write. And I'm very proud that it had no votes. But I also want to say it's held for a solid year in the assembly. Right? So they don't want to vote on it. And I am the only one in the nation to do a reso on human rights in Gaza. Right? And I work well with the Jewish community. I'm very proud to support them. They're my constituents. As an Afghan, I really deeply want to ensure that all people feel welcomed, right? And safe and secure in this nation. And we know that there's a rise in anti-Semitism. We know all of that. But that doesn't mean you can't criticize a foreign nation. You can't criticize their leadership. You can't criticize their policy. We do it all the time with China. We do it all the time with Iran. We do it all the time with Afghanistan. But why are there certain groups that we cannot criticize? And I think that as much as I would love to criticize the president all the time, right? I also want to work towards something that's meaningful, that is about human rights, that's about, humanity and, building together rather than destroying.
Yeah, no, what would you say your opponent's assessment on the situation is? There's there's a clip from the debate where it looks to be that Melissa's maybe reading off of a script, her response. I feel like it's been somewhat lackluster.
Yeah, I don't think that there's a lot of depth there.
Yeah. All right. So this is what I call the Zoran method. Zoran was able to define himself with 5 key policies.
Okay.
So this question is coming. What are your top 5 priorities for California's 14th district, and how would you go about implementing them?
Okay, affordability across the board, affordable housing, affordable healthcare. I want to cancel student debt. I want to make sure that my generation and the generations to come can pursue education, all the noble degrees that they want to. I want to make sure that we are prioritizing social safety nets across the board and human rights internationally and at home. Primarily, one of my key things that I want to work on, if I were to say a lifetime commitment, is the old school FDR economic bill of rights. I think as Americans, that's what we should be prioritizing. I think that is what people are looking for, is a better quality of life and real standards for what that means.
Cool. Okay. So I'm going to do rapid fire now. This might make its way to Fox News, by the way. So just remember,
Okay.
rapid fire. Do you support Medicare for all?
Yes.
Raising taxes on billionaires?
Yes.
Breaking up corporate monopolies?
Yes.
Canceling student debt?
Yes.
A data center moratorium?
Yes.
Codifying abortion?
Yes.
Abolishing and prosecuting ICE?
Yes.
Banning congressional stock trading?
Yes.
Ending Citizens United?
Yes.
Ending America's permanent wars?
Yes.
Ending all U.S. aid to Israel?
Yes. But like I said, humanitarian aid is important to me too.
Okay. A free Palestine?
Yes.
All right. The reason why I say this is going to end up on Fox News is they still put this stuff out there, and it's like it's usually very complimentary to the candidates, especially because oftentimes I don't think they even understand that the Republicans that are watching Fox News will look at that and go, yeah, I like that. Actually, I don't really understand what the issue is here. But the special election is right around the corner on August 18th. For people hearing about you for the first time today, what do you want them to understand about your convictions, and how can people chip in and get involved in your campaign?
Definitely. You guys can go to aishawahab.com. Definitely donate, volunteer, phone bank. You could phone bank across this nation. And I'm a daughter of this district. I grew up in the foster care system. I'm as American as they come. All the attack ads literally won't deter me. I carried a civil rights bill in my first year in the Senate, had a custom-made bulletproof vest made by the Senate and purchased by the Senate because of all the death threats, the rape threats, things like that. And I still carried that bill all the way, right? So I want to do what's in the best interest for my community. That is every single person. I want to fight the Trump administration and some of the rollbacks on the quality of life and human rights that we are seeing in this nation and abroad.
All right, Aisha Wahab, thank you so much for coming on, and I hope you win your race.
Thank you, buddy. Appreciate it.
Have
care,
a good
okay?
one.
Bye.
All right, that was Aisha Wahab running for California 14, and is getting a sea of attacks right now from AIPAC. And yeah, that is where we are at. You turn this off yet? Yes, I did. I did. That's the first thing I turned off this morning. Okay, training for generative AI. I'm a Luddite, okay? You should know this by now. I'm a motherfucking Luddite. Anyway, holy moly. Okay. What does Ludwig have to do with this? Have you seen that Karl Marx is back on Instagram? What? Oh, I've seen this. Maoist, if Marx were alive today, he would be a Maoist. Trotsky is. No, if Marx were alive today, he would follow the noble slogans of Comrade Trotsky. Marx, if he were alive today. Real. That's true. He is alive. He got reincarnated. He's a pothead. Amen, brother.
So, what will Michigan voters think?
Anyway, all right. Valuetainment. This guy hates America. AOC defends Hassan Piker after 9/11
A video went viral
comments.
this weekend.
That's crazy. That's crazy. My goats are talking about me. Your biggest fans are your opponents. I swear to God. What is this? Mind reading my last message. Adam Friendly Show, Mahmoud Khalil just came out just now. Nice. Man carrying thing dropped the short
It's
video
become
about
obvious
Woke
we need to address some
2.0.
changes that have happened over the years. Let me start first by asking...
What, are you going to do a land acknowledgement?
No, but should we? Pronouns?
There we go.
What?
Nobody has time for
The
this.
differences between us have become heightened. I feel that as your progenitor,
Gross.
I have some responsibility in your current outlook.
What outlook, man? We're sitting in your master bedroom.
Primary.
Talking about what? Words?
Ideals and goals.
That's why everyone wants to distance themselves from you. Woke one was kind of crazy.
You're just a fearful...
Holy fuck. The centrist think tank Third Way is hiring a director of anti-extremism to lead a messaging campaign against DSA. This is presumably related to Third Way's 2-year, $15 million effort against democratic socialism. Dude, we have to, like, Democrats across the board should abso-fucking-lutely see this for what it is. They should 1,000% cut these guys out. Like, I don't know what else to say about this. Like, this is straight up moneyed interest, man. This is straight up moneyed interest coming in as wolves in sheep's clothing. I can't believe it. DSA's most extreme ideas and statements to a repository of voting records, affiliations, and issue positions to make available to allies and partners, leading public opinion research to identify and test the contrast that move base voters away from these extreme candidates, overseeing the development of memos, talking points, rapid response materials, and other products that make that case against extreme forces in American politics, promoting and marketing our research and materials to ensure they reach decision makers quickly and at scale through a coordinated distribution infrastructure, recruiting and arming a group of young, diverse spokespeople to fight the DSA from a center-left perspective, and assembling a board of coalition of organizational partners to make the case against extremism, running an earned media program to create a jump rate of our message and op-eds, television appearance, podcasts, and traditional media and media engagement. This is literally what the Manhattan Institute does already. This is what the fucking Manhattan Institute does already. Salary range is $140 to $150 annually. At Third Way, we are committed to non-discrimination and fair pay practices. Yeah. Ay, ay, ay. I don't know, man. This is so fucking annoying. This is the reactionary version of Woke One. What? No. This, if you wanted to hear the Near Estate convo where they talked about you, starts here at 24.
Like,
oh, that's funny. I didn't even, I did the Estate convo today, and I barely even talked about Near Attendant, honestly. Like, we had more important things to discuss, in my opinion.
with outside money and specifically AIPAC. Like, which one is hurting the Democratic Party more? Like, Hassan Piker or its alignment with a corporate wing of the party that the voters are.
Oh, the timestamp was correct. Okay. Until 24.
That doesn't seem universal. Like, there seems to be, like, okay, is it vote blue no matter who, even if they campaign with Hassan Piker?
Well, since I am supporting Abdul al-Sayed, even though he did campaign with Hassan Piker, it has definitely applied to me. I think this is a really interesting discourse to me because I don't hold it against folks on the left who have been like grudging or oppositional. I think big tent means big tent, right? You have to be a big tent, even when I disagree. I just think it's also important to think about what a big tent really is. And I think like a challenge here for the left, I'm willing to take, I think it is absolutely the case that moderates or liberals or center left folks have to compete on ideas against the left when they disagree with the left. I mean, there's things I agree with the left on, but where I disagree, I have to offer better ideas. I also think the left has to acknowledge that the people the left claims to speak for, working class people, have been a challenge to get their votes from in these primaries. Even when you look at what's happening in blue cities and states. And so
there's much more of a middle class phenomenon if you look at the kind of DSA aligned coalition than it would be a working class phenomenon, even if you point to results in Michigan, where Stevens won the majority of lower income voters.
Absolutely. And, this is what like from my perspective, if we wanted to just speak tactically, the kind of most important thing for the Democratic Party over the next 2.5 years is to bring as many working class people back into the Democratic Party. Working class people of color have been voting for Democrats. The cleavage has been on racial lines amongst working class people.
Yeah.
Obviously in 24, there was a big loss of Latinos and Asian working class people, and even, I think the jury's a little bit out of black people, but there's been different data there. But to me, a Democratic Party that can maintain its current coalition and make inroads into working class voters, particularly white working class voters, is a party that can win a gigantic election victory.
I can't listen to her. I'm sorry. She's too blasted. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever. It's just, she's just fucking rambling. I don't know. I don't care. I don't care about her assessment, honestly.
Step backwards. We had Donald Trump, COVID, the Imagine music video. We had no choice but to be bold in our language. Also, I just want to point out that we're both white heterosexual men having this conversation. Just want to acknowledge that. I acknowledge. So what? You're so much better now. Just me, but scared to look stupid. We're evolving, understanding optics, recognizing we can't win and help people's material circumstances unless we chill on the culture war stuff. You mean lose on culture war stuff, which you clearly have, which is why you're so aloof and holier than that. Please, we're cool now. We're less tax the rich and more fuck the rich. Language. During Woke 1, we'd be like, let's defund the police. During Woke 2, we're like, let's not talk about that. Let's talk about something else. Do you hear yourself?
Yeah, this is I guess one of the... I've never experienced such a clear lack of coherent narrative than this exact issue, right? There are those out there who are like, oh no, this is about defund the police, or this is about police accountability. They're dropping this. I don't think that's the case, or at least I'm not. I never have, and I never will. So I don't really understand it. I come to this with the recognition that policing as an institution is unbelievably popular by the masses. And yes, policing, depending on which community you're talking about, it has a very different reaction overall. Maybe there's a little bit of a generational divide on this too, even including but not limited to black communities as well. But ultimately, it's very clear that there needs to be accountability. It's very clear that we need to fund the actual social safety nets and fund the social services necessary to do complete crime prevention. Every reporter and mainstream media person that mentioned woke uses that framing, and that's why politicians are responding with Hasan, you are the minority. Yeah, I use woke jokingly as a pejorative at times. I say that I'm woke sincerely at times. So I feel like one of the issues here is, while I have been one of the number one advocates of the distinction between woke 1 and woke 2.0, I mean, this community is literally the place where that materialized into reality, right? That and also dark woke, ironically, as concepts. But I think most people understand it entirely differently than what we're, than the way we use it. But I guess that is the nature of language. It's vague. But I want to make it clear over and over again. I just don't want people to misunderstand my position, at least, which is to never drop the policies or the positions in general. It's more so just to reframe the language in a way that is less academic and to reframe the attitude in a way that is more charitable to people, which was basically my position during Woke One anyway, right? Do you understand? Like, that was already something that I was advocating for regardless, and I've never stopped advocating for it regardless. It's just about like making it a little bit more accessible and a little bit easier to understand and maybe a little bit more dynamic. Right? Tony Evers tells Hong voters to get fucked. Asked what his message to Hong voters, Governor Tony Evers replies, yeah, they have to play along. I mean, not play along, they have to be part of it. Is David going to get behind some of the big things she talked about? No, but at the end of the day, the big issues are something that I'm sure she feels strongly about. Wait, what? Is this from this morning? Is this after the election?
What do you say to supporters of Fran Hong who are now looking at this election? We didn't get her. Now we have David Crowley. What do you say to those folks?
Yeah, they have to play along. I mean, not play along. They have to be part of it. We want them to be part of it. Obviously, a whole bunch of people. Is David going to get behind some of the things she talked about? No. But at the end of the day, the big issues are something that
it's not a good. Like, notice how Abdul never did this, right? When they asked about it, when they asked about party unity, Abdul was like, "Oh yeah, we're gonna do our very best to convince these people, convince these folks that we didn't, that didn't vote for us initially." And it's also, again, to be fair, much easier for the left candidate to push for party unity than it is for the right candidate to push for party unity, because the right candidate is running on electability, and the left candidate is running on policies. So then there is like an actual, like, what would be the policy for Haley Stevens voters, judging by like the campaign performance, like what the salient issues were for Haley Stevens? It's electability. It's, Obama endorsement. You know what I mean? Like, there wasn't a lot of like clear-cut policy differentials between Haley Stevens and Abdullah Sayed, and that was by design, right? I'm sure that in terms of Haley Stevens' track record and how she would have performed in the Senate, there would have been major differences. But that's not how she presented herself during the campaign, and I think that was by design. Once again, electability was the salient message. So that's the distinction between like a left candidate losing versus a right candidate losing, and then demanding unity. So it's tough. It's a tough situation. I don't think Democrats understand how important it is for them to. I don't think Democrats understand how important it is for them not to repeat the mistakes of 2024 here, right? Like, it's great to demand unconditional unity and to say like, no, it's time to nut up or shut up. It's time to lock in the way that they presented my perspective, which was false. That wasn't what I was saying. I was talking about consultants and not the voters. But, I certainly worry about that. I do worry about that. That would be not great. Hassan, please sue Scott Jennings. I'm a black Hasanabi head, and I know a bunch of black people who will believe the things he said. You know a bunch of black people that watch Scott Jennings and would trust Scott Jennings' word? That's pretty wild, in my opinion. But yeah, this is not good for Tony Evers to say. I hope he clarifies his position. She only got like 300,000 votes. Why should Crowley concede on any issue? So like, that's the argument that the moderates were trying to present towards Abdullah al-Sayed in the race, right? And the question I had was like, what were the voters' demands, judging by what Haley Stevens was running on? Because if Haley Stevens was running on like something very specific, then yeah, that would make sense. Then Abdul would have to like reconsider certain priorities, right? Like that does, that would make sense. If Haley Stevens had like one key policy prescription that Abdul was antagonistic towards, then we could at least like point to that and say, this is probably some area where Abdul has to like maybe moderate a position on. But it's not like Haley Stevens was even talking about Medicare for all being bad, So as far as the issues go for Crowley versus Hong, the Hong policy was chock full of, the Hong campaign was chock full of policies, like very clear policies. And I suspect that played a major role in her popularity, which was, fairly large. Anyway, let's continue with
folks,
Woke 1, Woke
2.0.
2.0.
Can you educate this moron?
Woke 3?
Yeah, it's me, Woke 3, kind of a metatextual wokeness written to critique and stand apart from whatever conversation's happening. Tell us who becomes president. Oh, there's no more presidents. I'm from way into the future. We don't get to Woke 3 for a while. So we just cycle back and forth between Woke 1 and Woke 2 for many decades, debating semantics and optics and so forth. I don't understand. As Woke 3, I more or less exist to critique the various eras of wokeness, but even then my use is more academic, useful to researchers of past eras. I don't understand. I'm a postmodern invention. I'm commenting upon the text. Friend that's a little too woke. Am I right? Shut the
Does Mayor Zoran Mamdani think that Perchi and AOC Woke 1 was crazy? He weighs in. All right, let's see what Zoran had to say about this. But what's really interesting about the Zoran defund the police thing is that he walked back his statement on defund the police, and then he just explained what defund the police is. So I guess the question remains, are we trying to get, well, to be fair, he did not disband SRG. So there's that element of this where, again, we're going now into like 2 or 3 different separate issues. Because if I'm going to parse through it, you got Tish on the one hand as police commissioner that I think is a major issue, and it's going to bubble up and eventually become a problem. He seems to think that he can control that dynamic. Number 2, disbanding the SRG, the Strategic Response Group, which is like the anti-terror group for NYPD, which was used and deployed against protesters over and over again, specifically against the Columbia students. And then last but not least was defund the police, right? Defund the police is what? Defund the police is taking away some of the expansive budgets of these ever-increasing budgets of the police precincts all around the country, and then taking away some of those funds and then putting it into social safety nets and also social services. Zoran Mamdani basically said he doesn't want to do defund the police, and then explained that he was doing defund the police, right? It's not about even a reduction of the police budget necessarily, but more so to keep headcounts the same, keep police budgets the same, and then take some of the additional surplus revenue and then spend it on social programs and social safety nets. So he is doing that. He is doing that. Is out of the 3 different components in his attitude towards policing, he is at the very least following through on the main promise that he made. Right? So I don't know what he's going to say here, but at the end of the day, as someone who was a firm and committed believer that defund the police as a slogan would have been effective if people didn't give up on it and just basically explain what that slogan meant. All he's doing here is trading off the sloganeering for the actual impactful policy behind the slogan itself. So, not sure what he's saying here. Let's take a look.
You think Woke 1 was crazy?
Look, I think that...
Can we stop listening to white people defending the right-wing framing of woke? Focusing on Woke 1 is already giving into the culture war. This conversation never need to be had by mainstream media and politicians. We were winning without trying to take a stance on this shit. Notice how 0 of the black DSA people brought this up. We already messaged around it. So, great statement. Here's the question. Were there social excesses in the prior iteration that sometimes could be toxic towards organizing? Do you agree with that or not? Because that's my attitude on it. My attitude on it is, no shit, yes, that's liberalism. Exactly. No, I agree. My point always was wokeness as a construct became, regardless of its inception within the black community, wokeness in its mass adoption became a capitalist construct, a commodified construct that is not real. It's not something that is organic. It became something that corporations could cynically deploy to sell burgers, or even mainstream media would deploy as a way that human beings don't exist in the real world, like a totally constructed understanding of social justice.